Wazoo sprints through the tall grass, fleeing his home in total despair after being betrayed by the girl he loved. Suddenly, he finds himself being hunted by an unlikely pair, a cat and a muscular fish. He dodges as they start throwing rocks, wondering how on earth a cat and a fish even teamed up to jump him. The monsters corner him with hungry looks, so he tries to bluff and tell them he'd taste absolutely terrible. They aren't interested in his excuses and let out a roar, leaving Wazoo thinking about playing dead as a last resort. He spots a bridge leading toward the base of a massive mountain and makes a run for it. He charges across the wooden planks, but the weird duo isn't about to let their prey escape that easily. The monsters tear into the bridge's supports, and Wazoo can only watch in shock as the whole thing collapses under him. He hits the bottom of the canyon, certain that his life is about to end right here. Just as the monsters prepare to finish him off, a massive shadow falls over the area, freezing them in their tracks. Ragnar, a colossal black dragon, towers over the scene alongside a mysterious skeletal figure. The dragon looks down at Wazoo, calling him a pathetic human who isn't even worth a snack. Ragnar lets out a massive yawn, telling him they have no interest in an ant like him before moving on. They depart, leaving Wazoo stunned that he actually survived a face-to-face encounter with a legendary dragon. He tries to head back, but the monsters from before are still lurking, so he ducks into a nearby cave to hide. Starving and desperate, he uses his guild card to slice open a strange fruit he found while watching some ants. He remembers joining the guild just to stay near his childhood friend Arya, only for her to end up with a hero instead. Thinking about her still makes his chest hurt, but he's stuck in this dangerous forest with no easy way out. He stares up at the S-tier mountain, where the weather is a constant nightmare of storms, fog, and heat. Hiding away in his cave, he feels like he's just waiting to die, too terrified to even step outside. 3 days pass without a real meal, and his survival instincts finally force him to start scavenging for anything edible. He's lost a massive amount of weight and can't stop dreaming of the hot meals he used to eat back home. Driven by hunger, he resorts to eating leftovers from other predators, forcing down stuff that tastes like literal garbage. He accidentally eats a poisonous plant that paralyzes his body, and as he lies there, a strange glowing light appears. The light hovers right over him, and Wazoo assumes he's seeing a ghost as he prepares for the end. He closes his eyes and drifts off, thinking the whole encounter was just a hallucination brought on by the poison. In his sleep, he relives the promise he made to marry Arya, a dream that was shattered when she was taken by another man. Wazoo wakes up with a renewed will to live and finds that, somehow, he's able to move his body again. His physical condition starts to improve, even though his daily routine involves eating things that make him want to vomit. Curious about his progress, he pulls out his guild card and uses a drop of blood to check his stats. The card shows his status, but the numbers look weirdly weak, even for a lowly rank F adventurer like him. He flips the card over and discovers a unique skill called Goddess's Sympathy listed on the back. The skill details explain that the goddess has been watching over him, granting him protection and a taste for bad food. Wazoo realizes that the glowing ball from before was likely the goddess herself, helping him survive. Suddenly, the text on the card changes, responding directly to his thoughts and encouraging him to keep fighting. Despite his terrible stats, he finds a bit of hope in these strange new abilities and decides to make the most of them. He leans into his training, eating poisonous mushrooms and pushing his body to the limit to build up resistance. About 6 months pass by, and all that survival training finally starts to pay off as he grows significantly stronger. He gains a new unique skill called Glutton, and the messages from the goddess on his card keep cheering him on. Finally feeling ready to hunt, he sets a trap and waits patiently for a monster to wander into his range. His first prey finally shows up, but it's just a jiggly, translucent slime wobbling toward him. He was really looking forward to some real meat, but he sighs and accepts that slime jelly will have to be his dinner tonight. Wazoo notices even the bamboo sticks and rock lizards are melting under the slime's acid. He remembers how adventurers usually keep their distance to avoid getting burned. He He thinks slimes are dangerous because of that acid, but then he realizes he's just standing right in the middle of it without a scratch. He picks up a small rock and decides to toss it at a slime just to see what happens. The rock completely obliterates the slime in one hit. Wazoo is stunned by his own strength and ends up spending way too much time cleaning up the mess. He takes the time to document every type of monster he's encountered in the forest on a cave wall. Now that he's finished, he's ready to move on. Having circled the entire forest, he realizes the only place left to explore is the mountain looming in the distance. While taking a break to eat, he wonders what his sister Kagani would say if she saw him looking this tattered and dirty. He spends the rest of the day making new clothes and shoes from monster materials, preparing to head for the mountain first thing tomorrow morning. It's been a year and a half since he fled from town. He decides it's time for another status check on his guild card. His stats have become absolutely insane. His HP can endure anything, and his strength is supposedly enough to smash a star. Even the goddess is unsettled by how strong he's become. Wazoo heads up the mountain, determined to test his true limits. The local monsters are so weak compared to him that they don't even count as a challenge anymore. He reaches a high ridge with a beautiful view and senses something massive heading straight for him. A colossal black dragon, Ragnar, swoops down from the sky, crushing several monsters under its weight as it lands. Wazoo is terrified but can't help but be fascinated. A real dragon, legendary and powerful, is standing right in front of him. Ragnar is surprised to see a mere human in such a high, dangerous place and asks how he even got there. Suddenly, a demon tries to take advantage of the distraction and attacks, but Ragnar swats it away like a fly. Annoyed that a human is invading his backyard, Ragnar tells Wazoo to get lost and go play somewhere else. Wazoo doesn't flinch. He explains that he's just traveling around, looking for anyone stronger than himself. Ragnar is amused by the human's audacity and offers to be his opponent, promising to hold back enough not to kill him. Wazoo accepts the challenge, though he has a sinking feeling he might immediately regret it. Ragnar moves into a combat stance, his sheer presence shaking the mountain to its core. Meanwhile, back in the Iskoa kingdom, Wazoo's sister Kagani is still searching for him in the capital's center market. She tells a local merchant that she hasn't found any clues yet, but she knows her brother is useless without her. Kagani spills her drink and yells in protest when someone suggests that Wazoo might have already found a beautiful girlfriend somewhere. A peddler notices her distress and offers to help, mentioning that he travels to many different towns. Back on the mountain, Wazoo catches Ragnar's massive claw strike with his bare hands. The dragon is genuinely impressed that a human could stop his strike. Realizing he needs to get serious, Ragnar unleashes a massive blast of fire breath directly at Wazoo. The flames die down, leaving Wazoo standing there completely naked. He's unhurt, but his hard-made clothes have been burned to ashes. Ragnar is shocked that a human could survive his fire breath unscathed. Wazoo is just annoyed that 3 months of work on his clothes vanished in a second. Wazoo tells Ragnar to take a look around as he prepares to strike back. He launches a punch that connects squarely with Ragnar's jaw, sending shockwaves through the air. Ragnar is sent flying back, crashing into the landscape with a deafening roar. Wazoo wonders if he might have overdone it just a little. Wazoo sits naked, waiting for morning to arrive. Ragnar eventually wakes up, amazed that a human could best him in a one-on-one fight. Ragnar lets out a hearty laugh, realizing he was beaten just for a set of new clothes. He invites Wazoo to his castle to get properly dressed. Wazoo introduces himself as a genuine human, and Ragnar formally introduces himself as the Dragon King. Wazoo enjoys the incredible view from Ragnar's back as they fly toward the castle. They arrive at a magnificent fortress that's far bigger and more impressive than any royal castle Wazoo has ever seen. Ragnar tells Wazoo to wait while he fetches some clothes, as his pride won't allow a naked man to wander through his castle. While waiting, Wazoo picks up a small, winged creature that's been watching him. It's Mir, and she seems quite curious about him. Mir squeaks and snuggles into him. but Wazoo's attention is pulled away by the sound of footsteps approaching. Mir perches on Wazoo's head as three residents of the castle, Rudo, Zeal, and Neil, arrive to investigate the intruder. Rudo, a high elf, launches a sudden attack, but Wazoo blocks her strike effortlessly. The residents are stunned that a naked human can withstand a high elf's blow. Rudo, Zeal, and Neil launch a coordinated attack on Wazoo, but he effortlessly blocks and dodges every strike without a scratch, even while completely naked. Wazoo asks if they're done yet, looking bored. The residents are stunned that he's unscathed. Rudo prepares real magic, while Zeal and Neil charge up their own lethal abilities, determined to take him down. Wazoo grins and invites them all to give him everything they've got. A nearby status window shows his humanity is at 88%, hinting at the cost of his godlike power. The battle is cut short as Ragnar's massive foot slams into the ground between them. The castle residents immediately freeze in terror. Ragnar orders Wazoo to get dressed and tells everyone to sit down and explain what's going on. A majestic white dragon, Meryl, introduces herself as Ragnar's wife and the mother of little Mir. She notes how incredibly rare it is for their daughter to bond with a stranger so quickly. Wazoo is shocked to learn Mir's true heritage. Ragnar is suspicious of his intentions, but Meryl silences him, choosing to trust Wazoo simply because Mir has chosen to trust him. Ragnar relents, formally entrusting Mir to Wazoo's care if that's what she wants. Wazoo smiles warmly, feeling a deep, sudden protective instinct for the small dragon. Wazoo spends a few peaceful hours playing with Mir in the castle grounds. Rudo watches from a balcony, still finding it hard to believe this human is as strong as he seems. Neil and Zeal observe Wazoo as well. Neil notes that he seems like a genuinely nice person, which Zeal finds oddly irritating even as he admits it's true. After spending several quiet days at the castle, Wazoo accepts Meryl's request to take Mir out to see the world beyond the mountain. He realizes this entire visit might have been a test of his character. The morning of their departure arrives. Ragnar tells Wazoo to be careful, but jokingly threatens his life if anything happens to his daughter. Wazoo is just happy to be moving again. Ruto and Zeal give him some final, stern advice to be bold and earnest. Wazoo waves a final goodbye as he and Mir begin their trek down the mountainside. Wazoo reflects on his path, figuring he's back near the area where he was wandering before. He suddenly hears rustling in the nearby brush. A cat beastman and a giant fish monster lunge out to ambush them. Wazoo effortlessly knocks them both unconscious with a single, uninterested punch as Mir cheers him on. Unsure of which way to go, Wazoo decides to seek some divine guidance and asks Mir to help him pray for a direction. He tosses a stick into the air and it points directly east. Taking it as a sign from the goddess, he and Mir head in that direction, though Wazoo is wary of the fortune anxiety the stick reportedly brings. After some time walking, Wazoo notices he's not alone on the road. He's surprised and a bit excited to see another human figure up ahead after so long. He meets a friendly peddler named Shiro, who is relieved Wazoo isn't a bandit. Wazoo is just happy for some human conversation, even if he doesn't have any money for Shiro's wares. Shiro is remarkably friendly, calling them friends almost immediately. After a pleasant chat, Shiro suggests they share a meal if their paths cross again before heading off. The peaceful mood is shattered as an arrow whistles past Wazoo's ear. He catches the next one in midair, his expression turning cold as he looks for the attackers. Wazoo is absolutely livid that someone dared to shoot at him and Mir. His aura explodes outward as he screams a threat at the hidden archers. He finds a group of bandits holding a young elf girl hostage. Her family is pleading for her life, but the scarred bandit leader only mocks them, tightening his grip on the girl. The bandits continue to taunt the elves, who are frozen in fear, knowing any move they make could mean the girl's death. Wazoo steps out from the shadows, looking thoroughly annoyed. He asks the bandits if they were the ones shooting arrows, as the confused elves wonder who this human stranger is. When a bandit tries to attack him, Wazoo catches the blade with his fingers. He tells the elves he hopes he's not too late to help as he prepares to end the standoff. Wazoo releases a sudden burst of power that sends the bandits flying like ragdolls. He apologizes to the stunned elf for the mess as the bandits are neutralized. With the bandits unconscious, Wazoo stands calmly in the clearing. The elves can't believe how easily this stranger handled a situation that had them completely paralyzed. The bandits scream in terror as Wazoo looms over them. He tells the elves to take the girl to safety while he makes sure these guys won't be bothering anyone else. A beautiful high elf named Salona suddenly appears, using her magic to hold back the last of the bandits. Wazoo is taken aback by her sudden arrival and her impressive power. Salona stands majestically, her silver hair catching the light as her magic swirls around her. Wazoo is mesmerized, thinking she looks absolutely incredible. With everyone safe, the young elf girl, Sheena, thanks her human Oni-chan with a hug. Salona and the others join in, expressing their deep gratitude for Wazoo's help. After some introductions, Salona invites Wazoo back to their village. Wazoo is impressed by their treetop homes, but a bit nervous when they start jumping between the high branches. Wazoo is warmly welcomed at the village and spends the night at Sheena's house. The family treats him like an honored guest, and he enjoys a rare moment of peace and companionship. Over dinner, the elves ask Wazoo about his journey and his incredible strength. They're amused by his simple explanations, but acknowledge that his movements were faster than they could follow. That night, as Wazoo looks out at the mountains, little Sheena boldly declares her intent to become his bride one day, causing a lot of laughter among the adults. The next morning, Wazoo finds a quiet stream to wash up. He reflects on how much his life has changed in just a few days, having made more friends than he has in years. While soaking in the water, Wazoo thinks back to Salona's cool magic. Feeling refreshed, he decides it's time to get out and head back to the village. He's suddenly frozen in shock as he sees Salona bathing in the same stream, just a few feet away. She's just as stunned to see him, and the silence is deafening. Panicking, Salona unleashes a powerful blast of wind magic at Wazoo, screaming for him to go away. Wazoo can only think about how badly he's messed up this time. Salona quickly grabs her things and flees, her face a bright shade of red. She's mortified, but she also can't get the image of Wazoo out of her head. Back at the village, Wazoo bows low in a sincere apology to Salona. The other elves can't help but chuckle at the awkward situation. Salona, still blushing furiously, tells Wazoo she's not mad and even apologizes for her magical outburst. She begs him to just forget what happened, and Wazoo is more than happy to comply. Salona is still blushing furiously, playfully threatening to report Wazoo's incident at the stream to the village chief. Wazoo is in a full panic, desperately pleading with her to just forget everything she saw. Salona breaks into a smile, revealing it was only a joke. She reassures Wazoo that the village chief is already deeply grateful to him for saving the children. She warmly invites him to stay in the village as long as he likes, while little Mir enjoys some attention from another elf. A few days later, Wazoo is out hunting with the elven warriors. When a pair of massive, horned mountain goats charge toward them, the warrior Luluna prepares her bow, but Wazoo steps forward, telling her he'll handle this. As the powerful beasts leap through the air, Luluna calls out to Wazoo in concern. Wazoo remains perfectly calm, a confident smile on his face as he prepares to intercept the charge. Wazoo catches the massive goats with his bare hands, carefully controlling his godlike strength to avoid a needlessly messy kill. Luluna is left in absolute awe, praising him for his incredible performance. The group returns to the village with a successful haul. The elves are increasingly impressed by Wazoo, calling him a true guardian of the village. Wazoo is just happy to be useful, while Luluna thinks about how even the formidable Salona would be impressed by his work today. The hunters discuss Salona, the head of the village guardians, and her history of protecting their home. Wazoo listens with interest, while little Mir rests on his head. The peaceful atmosphere is shattered when a wounded and panicked elf named Gazuna arrives. He gasps out a warning about a giant scorpion that has appeared on their hunting grounds, and says that Salona has stayed behind alone to face it so the others could escape. Wazoo's expression immediately turns serious at the mention of Salona being in danger. While some of the elves are hesitant, Wazoo doesn't waste a second, demanding to know where the monster is and racing off toward the large tree. Near the massive ancient tree, Salona is locked in a desperate struggle with the black-armored giant scorpion. Despite being covered in arrows, the monster is unfazed, and Salona is struggling to protect a wounded comrade behind her. Salona is determined to stop the beast before it can reach the village, but her magic is barely scratching its thick carapace. She urges the injured elf to flee while she tries to hold the line. The scorpion's heavy tail strikes, and Salona is forced back. Just as the monster prepares a final, lethal blow, Wazoo bursts into the clearing, his voice full of concern as he calls her name. Before Wazoo can reach her, one of the scorpion's massive pincers slams into Salona, sending her flying. Wazoo watches in horror as she coughs up blood, and his fear quickly transforms into a cold, terrifying rage. With a roar of pure fury, Wazoo lunges at the giant scorpion. He delivers a punch of such incredible power that it shatters the monster's armored shell and sends a massive shockwave rippling through the forest. Wazoo moves with blinding speed to catch the falling Salona before she can hit the ground. He holds her gently, his face full of worry, as Mir hovers nearby. Salona weakly opens her eyes to find Wazoo holding her. The other elven warriors arrive on the scene, frozen in shock at the sight of the giant scorpion defeated by a single, incredible blow. Wazoo tells Salona she's too injured to walk and insists on carrying her back to the village. Salona is flustered and embarrassed, protesting that she's covered in dirt and sweat, but Wazoo simply tells her he doesn't care. As they prepare to leave, a low, menacing rumble fills the air. To everyone's horror, the giant scorpion begins to stir, its multiple eyes glowing with a hateful red light. Despite her injuries, Salona tries to prepare for another fight, telling the other warriors to aim for its eyes while she tries to save Wazoo. She screams at the monster to let him go. To their absolute astonishment, Wazoo is already standing calmly atop the scorpion's head. He looks down at the beast with a bored, slightly annoyed expression, remarking on how surprising it is that it's still moving. To their absolute astonishment, Wazoo is already standing calmly atop the scorpion's head. He looks down at the beast with a bored, slightly annoyed expression, remarking on how surprising it is that it's still moving. Wazoo places a single finger on the monster's head, concentrating a massive amount of energy into a single point. He tells the beast he'll finish it for good this time, and the forest is suddenly filled with a blinding light. With the monster truly defeated, the group finally returns to the elven village. They are greeted with cheers and tears of joy from the villagers, who are relieved to see them all safe. Wazoo looks around at the smiling faces, finally feeling like he's found a place where he truly belongs. Wazoo and Salona head back to the village after the hunt. Wazoo's got that creepy hooded guy on his mind, the one he spotted lurking in the shadows earlier. Salona is still patched up from the scorpion fight, so the young man offers to walk her the rest of the way. He's genuinely worried about her, and she seems to appreciate the gesture. Being alone with her brings back that awkward memory from the hot springs. He starts panicking internally, wondering if she's secretly grossed out by him. They take a breather by the river under the moonlight. The elf girl thanks him again for saving her life earlier that day. Wazoo's too humble for his own good, apologizing for not being fast enough to stop her from getting hurt. She just smiles and tells him how kind he is. Salona admits she always thought she was the strongest in the village, but seeing him fight changed everything. The protagonist is completely blindsided by the sudden compliment. She seems relieved to find someone even stronger than herself. She looks at him with a soft expression that's got him even more flustered. Wazoo's face is beet red as he tries to process what's happening. Meanwhile, his companion is secretly hoping he might actually stick around for a while. Deep in the woods, Gazuna stares at the scorpion's remains with pure disgust. He's not happy about some random human ruining his plans. The hooded elf pulls out a couple of dark orbs, his face twisting into a nasty grin. He's done watching from the sidelines and decides it's time to take control. Gazuna stands before a pack of monsters, declaring that the time for his move has finally come. This guy is clearly bad news. Wazoo takes a moment to reflect on how far he's come. From a desperate runaway to a guy who's befriended dragons and is protecting an elven village. A week passes by in peace until a village girl comes running to his room. Things have taken a turn for the worse at the village square. Everyone's gathered to watch a duel for the title of head guardian. Salona stands across from a very smug-looking Gazuna. Wazoo rushes over to see what the commotion is about. The villagers explain that the silver-haired elf challenged Salona to a fight for her position. The stakes are high. The winner takes the lead, and the loser gets kicked out of the village for good. Gazuna's been jealous of her strength for a long time. An elder elf casts a massive magic barrier around the two fighters. He gives the signal, and the duel officially begins. The challenger goes on the offensive immediately, but the guardian isn't backing down. She blocks his strikes and looks for an opening. The crowd is clearly on Salona's side, cheering her on as she holds her own against her opponent's desperate attacks. Gazuna starts losing it, blaming her for everyone looking down on him. He's got this unhinged look in his eyes that screams trouble. He pulls out a dark relic called the Gospel of Darkness, vowing to show every elf who rejected him the true meaning of vengeance. Suddenly, a dark energy surges through the ground. Outside the barrier, the spectators feel a massive vibration as monsters start surrounding the area. The elder is horrified as a horde of creatures approaches the village. Gazuna just laughs, reveling in the chaos he's caused. Vicious beasts come charging out of the forest, and the villagers are left defenseless while the guardians are busy inside the barrier. The villain screams for the monsters to rampage as much as they want. Salona can only watch in horror as her people are put in danger. While the village is under attack, Wazoo stands calmly outside the barrier. He looks around, assessing the situation while everyone else is in a panic. Gazuna gives his opponent a twisted choice. Either kill him to drop the barrier, or stay inside while her village gets wiped out. Out of nowhere, Wazoo is just standing there inside the barrier, waving a casual greeting. The elf girl is completely floored. Nobody's supposed to be able to get in. The antagonist is losing his mind, trying to figure out how a human bypassed his magic. Wazoo doesn't even bother looking at him. He tells her to focus on the duel while he deals with the monsters outside. He's already taken care of the ones nearby, judging by the bodies in the background. Gazuna pulls out a mysterious red sphere, his expression turning even more sinister. He declares that this village will become her grave. He consumes the orb and transforms into a massive, hideous monster. Salona can barely believe the monstrosity standing before her. The beast lunges at her, sending her flying with a single blow. Wazoo watches closely, his face finally turning serious. He can't just stand by anymore. The young man steps in and stops the monster's next attack with ease, telling Gazuna that his interference ends here. The creature screams at him to get lost, but he isn't budging. He's furious that this guy actually tried to kill her. Wazoo winds up a massive punch and lets it fly, screaming out his feelings at the top of his lungs. Because I like Salona saying, the monster is absolutely vaporized by the force of the blow. As the dust settles, the protagonist realizes exactly what he just shouted in front of everyone. Salona is blushing furiously. She tells him she's happy about his feelings, but she can't leave the village because it's her duty to protect it. She looks heartbroken having to turn him down, but she's firm on her decision. He puts on a brave face and says he's going to keep traveling. Wazoo runs out of the village with Mir, trying to hold back the tears as he heads toward his next destination. It's a pretty rough way to end a confession. Sometime later, he wakes up in a new town called Linnock. A cheerful girl named Lula is there to make sure he doesn't sleep the whole morning away. Lula is all hyped up about the wandering hero staying at her inn. The young man is just focused on heading to the Adventurers Guild to get his life back on track. Wazoo is getting ready to head out, but it turns out someone's already here to pick him up. A woman named Emma from the guild introduces herself, and she's a real head-turner. Emma is incredibly pushy, insisting that he needs to change his clothes for the meeting with the guildmaster. She even offers to help him undress, which sends him into an absolute panic. He ends up sprinting out of the room to escape her help. Being around a beautiful woman like that first thing in the morning is way too much for a guy who's never had a girlfriend. They finally arrive at the Linux City Adventurers Guild. It's a massive, impressive-looking building that towers over the surrounding streets. The place is packed with all sorts of adventurers, including some demi-humans he's never seen before. Emma tells him to follow her up to the third floor, teasingly warning him not to stare at her hips while they climb. They enter the top office, where a massive, imposing figure is standing by the window. The man introduces himself as the Guild Master of Linux. The master turns around, revealing a bald, scarred, and very muscular face. This is Reagan, and he looks like the kind of guy you definitely don't want to mess with. Wazoo is frozen with fear until Reagan mentions his wife and daughter. He realizes this terrifying man is actually the husband and father of the sweet family he's been staying with. He can't help but shout his shock out loud, wondering how such a beautiful family could belong to this bald old goat. Reagan isn't thrilled with the tone, but he lets it slide. Reagan gets down to business, explaining that he wants Wazoo to take on a quest that other adventurers are too scared to touch. He's curious about how an F-rank kid like him survived so much. The mission is to investigate a dragon sighting on a nearby hill. A merchant spotted a massive silhouette 2 weeks ago, and Reagan wants someone to check it out. Wazoo is ecstatic when he hears the reward is 30 gold coins. He's so confident that he claims he'll just punch the dragon away if it causes any trouble. He heads out of the office, making sure to remind Reagan that he's not balding, just shaved. Reagan is left wondering if the kid is actually as strong as his daughter claims. Downstairs, Mir is busy being the guild's new mascot. Reagan's wife, Kayla, shows up with some sandwiches and water for Wazoo's journey, which he gratefully accepts. On his way through the city, he spots a girl being cornered by some shady-looking guys. He quickly jumps in and pulls her away before things get ugly. They duck into a quiet alleyway to hide. The thugs are left wandering the streets, frustrated that their target seemingly vanished into thin air. Once the coast is clear, he introduces himself as a friendly neighborhood adventurer. The girl is clearly relieved and thinks he has a lovely name. She pulls back her hood, revealing her name is Tada. Wazoo is once again amazed by just how many beautiful women live in this city. Tada is surprised that he's heading out on a dragon quest all by himself. He reassures her that he'll definitely be back soon and tells her not to worry. He notices a sad look in her eyes and can't help but try to cheer her up. He promises to return to the city as soon as the job is done. Tada watches him walk away, thinking what a strange but kind person he is. She gives him a small wave as he disappears into the crowd. He runs into the guard who checked him at the gate earlier. The man is shocked that he's going dragon hunting alone and with such light gear, but he wishes him luck anyway. He and Mir make it to the nearby hill. Wazoo checks the map Reagan gave him, figuring the dragon should be somewhere near the big lake. Mir shows off her storage magic by pulling out the sandwiches Kayla packed. Having a walking pantry is definitely going to make these long trips much easier. They take a moment to admire the sunset from the top of the hill. It's an incredible view that makes him appreciate how far he's traveled. As night falls, he reflects on how wide the world is. He wonders if he'll ever find a true friend who will stick by him forever. They finally reach a large cave. Wazoo calls out for the dragon, but the place seems deserted. He starts thinking maybe the sighting was just a mistake. Suddenly, a massive dragon appears behind them, and she's clearly not in a good mood. Wazoo realizes with a shock that it's Mel, Mir's mom. Mel is absolutely furious about something. Wazoo tries to get her to calm down, but she's way past that. Mir is just happy to see her mom again. Mel screams that she's left her husband for good and returned to her birthplace. Wazoo has stumbled right into the middle of a dragon family feud. Once she finally calms down, she explains the situation. Wazoo realizes the dangerous dragon everyone was scared of is actually just a very upset wife. Apparently, the black dragon king cheated on her with a red dragon. Wazoo can't believe Ragnar would be that reckless. Mel doesn't have a lot of evidence, so Wazoo offers to go get Ragnar so they can talk things through. He even offers to be a witness to make sure things go smoothly. She agrees to the meeting. Wazoo leaves Mir with her mom and sprints off toward the mountain castle to find the cheating husband. He reaches the dragon castle in record time. He finds Ragnar moping around, looking like he's in a state of total despair. Ragnar is surprised to see him. Wazoo immediately demands to know why he cheated on Mel, causing his whole family to fall apart. Ragnar swears he didn't do anything wrong. He explains that a dragon named Karel was aggressively hitting on him, and he didn't know how to turn her down. Wazoo isn't having it. He lectures the Dragon King on how stupid he was being and tells him it's no wonder Mel is so angry. Ragnar is terrified that Mel won't forgive him. Wazoo tells him that a sincere, wholehearted apology is the only way to fix things. They decide to head back to the cave together. Wazoo is exhausted from spending the entire day as a dragon relationship counselor. The next morning, Wazoo comes up with a faster way to travel. He hoists the massive black dragon king over his head like he's made of cardboard. He winds up and literally tosses the dragon across the landscape toward the lake. It's certainly quicker than flying, even if the passenger is terrified. Wazoo is back at the cave, and he hasn't come alone. He's brought Ragnar along to finally face Mel and settle their domestic dispute once and for all. Wait, there's another dragon here? It turns out Mel's mother is also present, making this a very awkward family reunion. Ragnar is desperate to explain that everything was just a huge misunderstanding. Mel's mother, whose name is Megal, is the former dragon queen. She's incredibly powerful and has no patience for Ragnar's excuses, forcing the Dragon King to kneel before her in shame. Wazoo finds himself caught in the middle of the argument. He realizes he's accidentally stepped on a conversational landmine by bringing the cheating husband back to his furious mother-in-law. Fed up with the constant bickering, Wazoo shouts at them to just be honest and make up already. He's tired of playing mediator for a couple of ancient, stubborn dragons. Wazoo tries to give Ragnar some relationship advice, suggesting he take Mel to a nice restaurant. He quickly realizes that finding a high-class restaurant for giant dragons in a human town is going to be impossible. Ragnar takes the advice to heart and promises to cut off all contact with the other female dragon. He's determined to prove his loyalty to Mel and his mother-in-law. As a peace offering, Ragnar decides to take Mel and Megal to the human town of Linux. He wants them to enjoy some delicious food and beautiful scenery as a way to mend their broken bond. Wazoo is confused. How are three massive dragons supposed to just walk into a human city? Megal finds it hilarious that he doesn't know their biggest secret yet. It turns out high-level dragons can use their mana to take on human forms. Wazoo watches in awe as a blinding light begins to transform the three giant beasts. The transformation is complete, and the results are stunning. Ragnar, Mel, and Megal now look like a group of noble, incredibly attractive humans. Wazoo can barely believe his eyes. Megal is ready to head to Linux, leaving Wazoo completely flustered by how hot the dragon family has become. He's a bit disappointed that Mir hasn't learned the trick yet. Elsewhere, the elf Salona is still searching for Wazoo. It's been 10 days since he left the village, and she's starting to get really worried about where he might be. She's followed his trail to a trade harbor, wondering if he's already hopped on a ship to another continent. The thought of never seeing him again makes her heart ache. Salona starts imagining a future where she and Wazoo are always together, but then she panics. What if he's already found other comrades and started his own harem? The idea sends her into a spiral of despair. She feels guilty for rejecting him in the past and wonders if she even has the right to stand by his side now. Her gloomy thoughts are interrupted by the arrival of a cheerful young girl. The girl is Lula, and she's currently running an errand for her father. She notices Salona looking down and offers her some freshly baked bread from a famous local bakery. Salona is struck by the girl's pure and uncorrupted eyes. She introduces herself and mentions she's thinking about visiting Linux, which happens to be where Lula is from. Lula is excited to meet an elf and invites Salona to stay at her family's inn. Salona explains that she's currently searching for a certain man, though she's a bit vague about the details. When Salona describes the man as aloof but cheerful, kind, and strong, Lula immediately gets a blush on her face. She has a feeling they might be looking for the same person. As soon as Lula mentions a young man with a small dragon on his head, Salona knows for sure it's Wazoo. She's shocked to learn that he's actually staying at Lula's inn and working for her father. Salona can't believe her luck. She's walked all the way from the elven village just to return Wazoo's guild card. But Lula is more interested in whether she loves him or not. Lula teases Salona, saying she's an open book when it comes to her feelings. Salona gets incredibly flustered, insisting that her heart isn't ready to join any kind of harem yet. Lula mentions that Wazoo is currently out on a job her dad gave him, but Salona is welcome to wait at the inn. Salona is nervous, wondering if Wazoo will even accept her when he returns. The two girls start making their way back toward Linux. Salona is daydreaming about going on adventures with just the two of them, her heart racing at the mere thought of it. Suddenly, Lula spots Wazoo in the distance. Salona freezes up, her heart pounding against her ribs as she sees the man she's been searching for. Wazoo is surrounded by three very attractive people. Salona is immediately hit with a wave of jealousy, wondering who these new friends of his are. She watches them from afar, feeling a bit dejected. She knows Wazoo is a kind and reliable person, so it's only natural that he'd make new friends, but it still stings to see him with others. When Lula tells her to go say hi, Salona panics and runs away. She tells Lula to just deliver the guild card for her, saying she has other things to do. All of a sudden, Lula is left completely confused by the elf's sudden departure. Meanwhile, Salona is hiding behind a tree, cursing herself for being so cowardly when she'd been looking forward to this meeting for so long. She wishes she could just apologize and ask to join his group, but the words just won't come. She feels like a jerk for the way she acted toward him in the past. Watching Wazoo smile from a distance makes her feel both lonely and frustrated. She's stuck in a whirlwind of emotions, not knowing how to bridge the gap between them. She clutches her chest, feeling a sharp pain that she can't quite explain. It's a feeling of deep regret and longing that she's never experienced before. She finally realizes the truth. She's already fallen head over heels for Wazoo. The realization is bittersweet, given how much distance there's between them now. Back at the guild, Reagan is having a hard time believing that the three beautiful people in front of him are actually the dragon family. Wazoo is trying his best to explain the situation without sounding crazy. To prove it, Ragnar briefly transforms his head back into a dragon's. The sight is so terrifying that Reagan immediately falls backward, begging them to change back to their human forms. With the proof provided, Wazoo is eager to collect his reward and head out for a nice dinner. He asks Reagan if he knows any good restaurants around the city that can accommodate their special guests. Lula arrives at the guild just in time to hand Wazoo his guild card. She mentions she met an elf named Salona, which immediately catches Wazoo's attention. He wonders if she's really here in the city. The next day, Wazoo takes Mel and Megal on a tour of Linux. The dragon ladies are fascinated by the human town, finding all sorts of interesting things they've never seen before. They stop by a shooting range, and Megal decided to give it a try. She's surprisingly good at it, hitting every target with ease and earning some impressed looks from the locals. Mel, on the other hand, isn't having much luck and ends up with a consolation prize. Wazoo and Lula continue their tour, noticing how bustling the entertainment district is. Lula points out a grand-looking building, which the dragon ladies find very impressive. Lula and the other maid are too embarrassed to tell them that it's actually the town's most prestigious brothel. Wazoo is treating his new dragon friends to a feast, but the amount they're eating is astronomical. Reagan warns him that even though they look human now, Their stomachs are still very much dragon-sized. Wazoo is annoyed that Ragnar is already relying on him so much. Reagan changes the subject, telling Wazoo to come by the guild tomorrow to officially re-register and get his business in order. Walking back alone that night, Wazoo can't help but think about Salona. He's startled when the goddess's voice suddenly teases him for being so focused on one girl that he's forgetting about his divine patron. Wazoo tries to ignore the voice while grabbing a quick bite. He clarifies that he hasn't made new comrades for a party, just guides for the dragons. He gets a sudden chill, sensing that there might be some shady characters in this town. Back at the restaurant, Ragnar, Mel, and Megal are absolutely devouring the food. Wazoo is sweating bullets, terrified of what the final bill for this small feast is going to look like. The atmosphere softens as Mel decides to forgive Ragnar. The Dragon King's attempt to make amends with luxury food worked perfectly, and the couple reconciles with a very public and embarrassing hug. The next day at the guild, Wazoo is horrified to find his reward is nearly gone. Reagan reveals that the cost for the dragon family's feast and lodging were deducted directly from his payout, leaving him almost broke. There's a silver lining, though. The guild receptionist informs Wazoo that his rank has jumped straight from F to C. Since he can negotiate with dragons, they've decided to skip the usual tests and promote him immediately. Returning to the inn, Wazoo is teased by Lula. She's heard from Reagan that he's being taken to a nice place tonight, and she jokingly calls him a playboy for going out on the town. Wazoo is fuming because Reagan is charging him for the dragon's stay at the very inn where he's working as a bodyguard. Meanwhile, Ragnar and his family are relaxing in total luxury, completely oblivious to his financial stress. Wazoo prepares to head out with Reagan, leaving Mir in the dragon's care. Megal notes how everything in the human world seems to revolve around money, while Ragnar continues to act like a perfect, doting husband to avoid further trouble. Reagan has hired a fancy carriage to take them to the entertainment district. Wazoo is confused until Reagan mentions introducing him to a girl or two to spend the night with, making him realize exactly what kind of place they're visiting. They arrive at the town's most prestigious brothel. Wazoo is panicking, but Reagan insists they're just there to see an old friend who owns the place. He ruthlessly teases Wazoo for still being a cherry boy at 17. Inside, they are greeted by a stylish man named Garrett. Reagan introduces Wazoo as a promising young adventurer, while Wazoo tries his best to disappear into the floor out of sheer embarrassment. Garrett has already heard the rumors about the boy who can stand equal to the Dragon King. Wazoo feels completely out of place in the opulent setting, his eyes darting around nervously. Garrett invites Wazoo to pick any girl he likes for the night. A group of beautiful women immediately surround him, and Wazoo is so overwhelmed he feels like his brain is going to short-circuit. Suddenly, a stunning woman with long black hair steps forward, asking to accompany the wonderful gentleman. Wazoo recognizes her immediately. It's Tada, the girl he saved from the slave traders. Tada is beaming, clearly happy that Wazoo remembers her. Garrett is surprised, noting that Tada rarely shows interest in customers, but she insists that Wazoo is a special case since he saved her life. Tada leads Wazoo away, suggesting they become more than just acquaintances. To cope with the extreme awkwardness, Wazoo grabs Reagan's strong liquor and starts drinking it like it's water. The potent alcohol hits Wazoo like a freight train. He lets out a satisfied pwah before his eyes roll back and he face plants onto the floor, completely unconscious. When Wazoo finally wakes up, he feels something incredibly soft under his head. He realizes he's lying in Tada's lap, and the close proximity to her chest makes him let out a panicked "WHA?" Tada gives him a gentle, knowing smile. She explains that he fainted after overdoing it with the liquor, and Reagan entrusted her to take care of him in her private room. As Wazoo tries to process the situation, Tada starts to prepare herself for the night. The sound of rustling fabric fills the room as she begins to undress, much to Wazoo's growing alarm. Tada leans in close, her expression suggestive as she tells him he can do anything he wishes with her. Wazoo is in a total state of shock, his heart racing as he realizes he is absolutely not ready for this level of intimacy. Wazoo is totally flustered when Tada suggests they sleep together so she can get to know him better. He's thinking things are moving way too fast here. He grabs her hands and tells her she needs to value her body more instead of just offering it up like that. Tada is surprised, but she can't help but giggle at his reaction. Tada laughs and calls him strange but kind. She admits she feels a bit guilty now for trying to trick someone as honest as him. She explains that she saw him handle those 3 adventurers earlier and has been asking Reagan to introduce them ever since. She was hoping he might lend her some of that strength. Wazoo doesn't hesitate. He asks who he needs to beat up for her. He tells her not to worry about money, and says he just can't walk away from someone with an expression as lonely as hers. Tada pouts and asks if she really looks that lonely. She admits it feels like he can see right through her, then asks for a promise that she can tell him the rest of her story later. Tada explains that she's working at the inn to pay off a massive debt her father owes. The guys chasing her earlier were debt collectors, and her parents are back home doing everything they can to raise the money too. Wazoo immediately offers to go talk to the creditor so she can just go home, but Tada panics. She tells him he can't pick a fight with this person, no matter how strong he is, or he won't be able to stay in the city. Tada says she's determined to pay off the debt and win back her freedom with her own hands. But since she's scared they won't let her go that easily, she asks Wazoo to protect her until then. Wazoo smiles and promises to support her determination with everything he's got. He tells her not to hold back and that he'll come flying to save her the moment she's in real danger. Tada thanks him with a blush. Wazoo gets flustered and mentions he became an adventurer to build a harem. Instead of being weirded out, she thinks the idea is actually kind of lovely. She jokingly asks if she could be the first member of his harem. Wazoo is totally caught off guard and tells her not to joke like that, as they realize they still have a lot of time left in the night. Wazoo asks Tada to show him around the city since he's still new to Linux. She happily agrees to show him some good restaurants and scenic spots the next day. The night passes, and Tada wakes up in bed the next morning, realizing she actually fell asleep. She looks over and sees Wazoo fast asleep on the floor. She's stunned that he really didn't try anything while she was out cold. She watches him sleep and can't help but blush at the thought. She remembers him telling her to value herself more and realizes this is the first time she's met someone like him. Wazoo starts to stir as she hides her face. Wazoo wakes up with a big stretch, thinking he had an amazing sleep. He notices Tada's business card on the table, but she's already headed out for the day. He leaves the inn feeling good, but his peace is interrupted by someone shouting at him. It's a cat girl named Ninya, and she is definitely not happy to see him. Ninya tells him never to come back, calling him a plain-faced nobody who just got lucky for one night. Wazoo tries to explain, but she just calls him cheeky and refuses to listen. She practically kicks him out of the area. Even though the owner said Wazoo was strong, Ninya doesn't trust him yet and feels she's the only one who can truly protect Tada. Wazoo finds Mir and tries to cheer the little dragon up since she's been sulking about him staying out. He offers to buy her something delicious as an apology. Tada shows up in a new dress and greets them both. Wazoo is surprised to see her so soon, and she introduces Ninya as her official bodyguard. Wazoo tries to be friendly, but Ninya just slaps his hand away. She then grabs Mir to play with her, telling Wazoo to just shut up and carry the shopping bags. Ninya runs off with the little dragon. Wazoo is confused by her attitude, but Tada giggles, thinking Ninya might just be trying to give the two of them some alone time. They browse a jewelry store, and Wazoo says he wants to buy something to thank everyone for being so kind to him. Tada points out that smaller shops like this often have one-of-a-kind items. Suddenly, Wazoo's expression changes. He senses something outside and tells Tada to stay in the shop and not go out for any reason. Wazoo walks out and confronts a group of men. They're the debt collectors from before, and they mock him for being alone now that the Beast Folk girl isn't around to protect him. Wazoo doesn't waste any time. He moves like a blur, kicking one guy into the air and slamming another against the wall before they even know what's happening. He finishes off the whole group in seconds and sighs about what a pain the whole thing was. The thugs are left scattered and unconscious on the ground. Ninya walks up with Mir, admitting that Wazoo is even stronger than she expected. She reveals she was using the thugs to test him and see if he was actually worthy of being around Tada. Ninya admits she was ready to step in if needed, but Wazoo handled it so fast it wasn't necessary. He asks if she trusts him now, and she has to admit he's way out of her league. Ninya reveals a dark secret. Tada's debt is actually a total lie concocted by the city's lord, Gazuna. He's the worst kind of person and only created the debt to force Tada to belong to him. Tada comes out of the shop and starts scolding Wazoo for disappearing. She jokingly pulls on his cheeks, acting like she's his boss while Ninya watches from the side. Wazoo suddenly gets serious and shouts that she doesn't have to worry about anything anymore. He vows to stay by her side so she can finally feel safe. Tada is touched by his passion. Meanwhile, a narrating voice, a goddess, explains that Ninya told Wazoo the whole truth about the fake debt and the Lord's influence over the city. The goddess continues, describing how Tada's parents and friends like Reagan are all working hard to find proof that the debt is fake so they can finally protect her. Lord Gazuna is already sending mercenaries because he knows the truth is about to come out. The goddess cheers Wazoo on, telling him to go beat up that scumbag lord. Back at the shop, Tada spots some matching goods for couples. She blushes and asks Wazoo if she would look like a normal girl if she walked around holding his hand. Wazoo just laughs and tells her she's far more beautiful than any normal girl. Tada is completely stunned and embarrassed by how blunt he is with his compliments. She starts to tear up, overwhelmed by her emotions and her past. She looks at Wazoo with a deep, silent gaze that says more than words ever could. They find a pair of rings with ancient letters. Wazoo reads the engravings. The men's ring says, "I hold you dear," and the women's ring says, "I look only at you." Tada stares at the ring with the message, "I look only at you." She wonders if someone like her is even allowed to have a wish like that. Tada's heart is racing as she holds out a ring to Wazoo. She nervously asks him if he'll put on for her. Leaning into his side, she realizes this isn't just about gratitude anymore. For the first time, she truly feels like a normal girl in love. Wazoo is hesitant because he fights with his bare hands and might break a ring, but Tada insists. She tells him she just wants him to wear it whenever they're together. They part ways for the night with a promise to meet again. Tada watches him go with a soft smile while Ninya, her catgirl bodyguard, keeps a close watch. Wazoo waves goodbye, feeling pretty good about how things are going. Tada just stands there blushing as Ninya gives him one last skeptical look. Back at the inn, Wazoo gets a warm welcome, which mostly involves Mir biting his arm in a jealous rage. Reagan and his family can only watch the chaos. Wazoo tries to explain that the ring was just a present, but the dragon family isn't buying it. Ragnar is especially intense about Wazoo keeping his focus. To make it up to Mir, Wazoo presents her with a beautiful hair ornament he bought as a souvenir. The little dragon's mood shifts instantly. Mir is so touched by the gift that she starts bawling. Wazoo gives her a big hug, glad to finally be back in her good graces. Wazoo ends up sleeping on the floor and wakes up feeling like he was hit by a truck. A guild staff member named Emma bursts in to wake him up. She catches him in a pretty embarrassing pose on the floor and gets totally flustered. Wazoo, meanwhile, just wants to know what the emergency is. Emma explains that a deadly poison swamp has suddenly appeared south of the city. Wazoo just laughs it off, showing her his status screen. Poison doesn't stand a chance against him. He accepts the scouting mission but tells Mir and the others to stay behind for their own safety. Ragnar looks at the quest paper, clearly worried. Ragnar tells Wazoo he has a bad feeling about this and offers to come along. He wants Wazoo to know it's okay to depend on others once in a while. Ragnar shifts into his massive black dragon form for the trip. He jokes that Wazoo looks like a totally useless dad compared to a Dragon King, but he's happy to be the ride. They take off from the city walls, heading straight for the forest. Down below, the city folks watch their legendary departure. Back at the inn, Megel and Mel sense a dark presence approaching the city. They know something truly evil is on its way. In a dark alley, a hooded figure approaches a group of thugs. He's talking about a red orb that can grant incredible power, even if it costs them their sanity. The mysterious man offers them a discount on the orb, claiming it's strong enough to take down a Dragon King. The thugs look ready to make a deal. While the city's underbelly plots, Tada sits alone by her window. She's looking at the ring she received, clearly worried about the shadows closing in. Wazoo and Ragnar reach the forest and are hit by a wall of thick purple miasma. The smell is so foul it nearly knocks Wazoo over. Ragnar suggests just blasting the whole forest with fire to clear it out, but Wazoo stops him. He doesn't want to destroy the ecosystem just to fix one swamp. Ragnar turns back into his human form to keep a closer eye on Wazoo. He's amazed to see Wazoo walking through the thick poison like it's a field of flowers. Wazoo admits he doesn't really understand his own power either. He just remembers being desperate and refusing to die as a pathetic man. He mentions he used to eat whatever he could find, bones, weird mushrooms, you name it. Ragnar realizes Wazoo's strength might come from some very strange places. Ragnar notes that Wazoo has a natural talent for drawing people to him. Wazoo is modest, joking that he still doesn't even have any actual friends. They finally find the source of the miasma. A massive, bubbling pool of pitch-black sludge sits in the middle of the clearing. A monster made of pure, poison miasma screeches as it lunges at them. Ragnar tells Wazoo to back off, since one touch could be fatal. Wazoo decides he wants to test something out. Ragnar freaks out, thinking the kid is about to commit suicide by poison beast. Wazoo throws a punch and completely vaporizes the monster. He's relieved he can actually hit it, while Ragnar is left screaming in shock. Wazoo stands over the smoking remains, totally casual. Ragnar can't believe he just treated a high-level threat like a common pest. He spots a red marble in the sludge. As soon as Wazoo picks up the marble, it crumbles to dust. It confirms his suspicions about the connections to the city lord's earlier scheme. Now, for the cleanup. Wazoo's brilliant plan is to just drink the entire swamp. He takes a sip and is surprised to find it tastes like citrus. He goes full vacuum mode, chugging the poisonous water until his stomach swells up like a giant balloon. Ragnar is watching in pure horror. Wazoo finishes the last drop and lets out a massive sigh of relief. He's full, the forest is safe, and Ragnar is officially traumatized. Suddenly, a brilliant light fills the area. Wazoo hears the voice of the Mother Earth goddess, thanking him for saving her forest. Wazoo collapses as the light fades. His stomach is back to normal, but he's completely drained. Ragnar rushes to his side. Looking at the sleeping Wazoo, Ragnar realizes this man truly is a kind soul. He decides to officially acknowledge him as his daughter's choice. Ragnar declares they are best buds forever, while Wazoo just lets out a miserable groan. It seems the after effects are starting to kick in. Back in the city, Reagan is checking on a very pale Wazoo. Wazoo admits he has a bit of a stomachache, and Reagan just laughs, thinking he's joking about the swamp. Reagan delivers some good news. They finally gathered enough evidence to take down Lord Gazuna. Tada is almost free from her debt. Wazoo is busy losing his lunch in a bucket. He wonders why his immunity is failing him now. Suddenly, the goddess of Mother Earth appears in his mind. Wazoo is staring at his status card in utter disbelief as a new voice echoes in his mind. The goddess of Mother Earth. She's so moved by his actions to save the forest that she grants him her divine protection too, despite his desperate pleas for her to stop. It's too late. The card glows as his stats skyrocket into the realm of the impossible, with strength enough to destroy a planet and speed faster than light. However, his human purity drops to 78%, and he can only cry out in despair at the unwanted power. Wazoo limps through the city, his entire body racked with pain for what the goddess calls growing pains. He wonders if this agonizing level up is really worth the trade-off as his body struggles to contain the new power. A mysterious hooded man with a dark smile bumps into him in the street. Wazoo is so pale he looks like a ghost, and though the stranger offers an antidote or a trade, Wazoo just wants to get to the mansion and rest. The man introduces himself as Shiro and tells Wazoo to try buying something from him if they ever meet again. Wazoo is left confused by the encounter, but quickly shifts his focus back to his primary goal, protecting Tada. Wazoo finally reaches the mansion where Ninya is waiting, her arms crossed in frustration over his long absence. As she begins to emphasize the gravity of their situation, Wazoo suddenly collapses face first onto the floor. Ninya panics, shaking him desperately and screaming for him to wake up. Meanwhile, a sweeping view of the capital shows a deceptive calm before the coming storm. The scene shifts to a darker setting where monsters are roaring in the shadows. A powerful figure stands over the city, laughing as he prepares to unleash chaos upon the unsuspecting citizens. Lord Gazuna, hidden under his hood, looks down at a collection of red orbs. He's disappointed that none of them evolved into the specific form he hoped for, but he decides they'll be enough to spice things up for the night. At the Adventurers Guild, Orlando slams a report onto Reagan's desk with a look of pure panic. He delivers the dire news. A horde of at least 1,000 goblins is marching toward the city's southern borders. Wazoo finally wakes up to find his head resting on Tada's lap. She looks down at him with immense relief, explaining that he collapsed from exhaustion, while Wazoo is instantly flustered and apologetic for being a burden. Panicked by the changes on his status card, Wazoo suddenly grabs Tada and begs her to tell him if he still seems human. Tada blushes as he asks her to touch him and make sure nothing is weird, her heart pounding at the sudden closeness. Tada gently strokes his face and whispers that he's actually quite cute. The moment is interrupted when Ninya bursts in with water, her tail wagging furiously despite her annoyed expression at seeing the two of them so intimate. The girls thank Wazoo for saving the capital, but they're both curious about how a normal human could possibly drink a whole swamp. Wazoo tries to play it off, but Tada's playful gaze tells him she knows he's hiding an incredible secret. Tada leans in close, her eyes filled with deep, unwavering sincerity as she tells him that she truly believes he is a human at heart, no matter where his strength comes from. She promises to believe in him always. Wazoo is touched by her words, but their peaceful moment is cut short by a sudden, violent noise coming from outside the mansion. A messenger runs in, shouting that a massive horde of goblins is about to raid the capital. Every available adventurer, including the guild master and the knight leader Garrett, has already mobilized to the gates. Wazoo's expression hardens with determination. It's time to move. Tada doesn't ask him to save the city. She just tearfully begs him to stay safe and come back to her. Tada's eyes well up with tears as she holds on to him, terrified of what's coming. Wazoo gives her a reassuring smile, promising that no matter what, he won't die, while Ninya promises to stay by Tada's side. Wazoo runs out, shouting that he'll be right back. Tada watches him from the balcony, her hands clasped in prayer as the city gates below are swamped with chaos and fear. The city gates are under immense pressure. Guards are shouting to keep the gates shut, while adventurers inside are clamoring to let them out to fight, fearing the capital will be overrun. Wazoo pushes through the crowd and finds Orlando. He casually asks where the goblins are, while Orlando and the other adventurers are panicking about being trapped while their leaders fight alone outside. Orlando is in despair, cursing his own weakness as he watches civilians cowering in fear. Wazoo puts a calming hand on his shoulder and tells him to leave the situation to him. Wazoo tells Orlando to open the gates when he gives the signal. Before anyone can process what's happening, Wazoo takes off running and jumps straight over the massive city wall. Orlando's jaw drops as he sees Wazoo plummeting toward the ground. He can't believe the dragon tamer just committed what looks like a suicidal leap into the fray. In midair, Wazoo looks down at the sea of green monsters below. He's impressed by their numbers, but he's already preparing his landing, shouting, "Here we go." Wazoo hits the ground like a meteor, creating a massive shockwave that vaporizes hundreds of goblins in an instant. He casually notes that he probably took out enough of them to make the rest manageable for the others. The adventurers at the gate watch in stunned silence as the dust clears. Wazoo waves back, telling Orlando to open the gates and let the others handle the remaining goblins while he goes to find the guildmaster. Wazoo dashes off into the forest, leaving a crying and grateful Orlando behind. The young adventurer can barely manage a thank you as Wazoo disappears from sight. Deep in the thick of the battle, Reagan and Garrett are fighting for their lives. They're outnumbered and exhausted, realizing that if they don't find the Goblin King soon, the city is doomed. Wazoo suddenly appears behind them with a cheerful greeting. Reagan is so shocked he nearly misses a swing, yelling at Wazoo for showing up in such a dangerous place so casually. As they discuss a plan to draw out the leader, a massive explosion rocks the ground. A terrifying report comes in. A demon has appeared at the northern gate and is tearing through the defenses. Reagan explains that demons are humans corrupted by excessive magical power, turning into mindless engines of destruction. Wazoo remembers the sinister presence of Lord Gazuna and realizes the connection. Wazoo tells them he'll handle the north gate and runs off again. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Tada and Ninya are shaken by the explosion, unaware that a terrifying presence has appeared right behind them. A clawed hand snatches Tada away as Ninya is paralyzed by the sudden lack of presence from the attacker. A distorted, monstrous voice whispers, "Tada, you're mine." Lord Gazuna reveals himself in a hideous, demonic form. He laughs maniacally, holding a terrified Tada as he declares that everyone will despair before the combined power of his demons and goblins. The chaos in the city intensifies as goblins break through. People are running for their lives, but those who saw Wazoo's power are holding onto a glimmer of hope. Wazoo is racing through the streets, Mir flying right alongside him. He spots a group of enemies ahead and focuses his gaze. "I see them." He confronts a group of minor demons who are attacking civilians. Wazoo pauses for a second, realizing their faces look familiar. They were the thugs from the city's slums. Determined to end their suffering, Wazoo lands a devastating punch on one of the transformed men. He knows there's no way to turn them back, so he chooses to give them a swift end. Wazoo tears through the group of demons with ease, his strikes sending shockwaves that clear the streets. With a final farewell, he puts the last of the corrupted souls to rest. The surviving adventurers are in awe, calling him the legendary Dragon Tamer. Wazoo barely stops to check on them before rushing back to Reagan, who is flabbergasted that Wazoo finished the job so quickly. Reagan tells Wazoo that the situation is dire. Even with reinforcements, they can't stop the Goblin Army. Wazoo is beaming with joy because being needed by others feels incredible to him. Ninya suddenly appears, battered and crying. She delivers the horrifying news that Lord Gazuna has transformed into a monster and kidnapped Tada. Wazoo's happy expression vanishes, replaced by cold fury. Reagan and another adventurer discuss the grim reality of Tada's situation. They fear Gazuna will force her to marry him, or worse, keep her as a prisoner in his mansion to do with as he pleases. In a painful reflection, Tada's past struggle is shown, working to pay off her parents' debt while fearing she would never find true love. She cries, realizing that being forced into a marriage with Gazuna would mean a life of eternal misery. Ninya is inconsolable, sobbing that she only wanted to make her Wani-sama happy. Wazoo listens with a grim face, the weight of the city's fate and Tada's life resting on his shoulders. Wazoo is torn between helping the army and saving Tada. Reagan and the others shout at him to leave the battlefield to them, urging him to go where he's truly needed. Wazoo is paralyzed by the impossible choice. Suddenly, the ground shakes as the massive black dragon Ragnar descends from the sky. He looks down at Wazoo with a knowing smirk, asking if his buddy is in a bit of tight spot. Ragnar tells Wazoo to go save Tada and leave the goblin army to him. Wazoo's face lights up with gratitude as he realizes his friend has arrived to turn the tide of the war. With a shout of, "I'm counting on you, best bud," Wazoo takes off running at full speed toward the city. Ragnar watches him go with a huff of amusement, ready to unleash his power. Ragnar asks Reagan about the enemy's strength. Learning there are about 800 goblins and several kings, the dragon decides they'll look better roasted and tells the adventurers to move out of his line of fire. The adventurers cheer for the Dragon King, as Ragnar mentions he's fighting for the people trembling in fear, including Reagan's daughter Lula and his own daughter Mir. Reagan is stunned that the dragon knows his child's name. Ragnar lets out a world-shaking roar and charges into the goblin ranks, incinerating everything in his path. Meanwhile, at the mansion, a terrified Tada is held captive by the villainous lord. Gazuna, now a demonic monster, gloats over Tada and tells her she is destined to be his. Tada defiantly spits back that she will never belong to him, asserting that her heart remains pure despite his cruelty. Enraged, Gazuna insults her and mocks her feelings. Tada remains steadfast, her eyes filling with tears as she declares that her heart is reserved for someone she truly loves from the bottom of her soul, and it's definitely not him. Tada screams her love for Wazoo, vowing that she will never be Gazuna's. The monster's face twists into a hideous grin as he prepares to break her spirit once and for all. Gazuna threatens Tada with unspeakable acts, determined to make her submit. She screams for help just as a massive explosion rocks the room. Wazoo bursts through the wall with a powerful strike, instantly knocking Gazuna back. Tada cries out his name in a mixture of shock and overwhelming relief as her savior finally arrives. Wazoo apologizes for his lateness and gently covers the half-exposed Tada with his own shirt. He reassures her that the battle outside is almost won and that he's here to protect her as her personal bodyguard. Now shirtless, Wazoo stares down Gazuna. The monster is baffled, demanding to know how a mere human jumped over the mansion's fortified walls like it was nothing. Gazuna scoffs, claiming Wazoo couldn't have bypassed the 30 Barank adventurers guarding the place. Wazoo simply points to a literal mountain of unconscious guards he took out with a few special knuckle sandwiches. Driven to madness, Gazuna unleashes his ultimate demonic power, summoning flames and serpents of water. He laughs hysterically, believing his newly acquired strength is far beyond anything a human can handle. Undeterred by the massive display of magic, Wazoo stands his ground with a look of absolute resolve. He tells Gazuna to rot in hell as the final clash between human and demon begins. A mysterious figure watches from a distance, noting how Wazoo's strength has completely defied his expectations. The Count is ready to end it, channeling all his newfound magical power into a massive elemental blast. Tada screams for Wazoo to run. Wazoo isn't alone, though. A couple of goddesses pop up to offer their protection, telling him to give it his best shot. The explosion is massive, tearing through the area. Tada covers her eyes, while Wazoo stands his ground in the middle of the chaos. She begs him to just abandon her and save himself, but Wazoo gives her a confident wink. He's totally fine. Tada can't wrap her head around why he'd go this far for someone like her. Meanwhile, the Count is losing his mind because his ultimate attack didn't leave a scratch. Then, right in the middle of the life-or-death struggle, Wazoo just blurts it out. He tells her he likes her. Instant regret. Wazoo realizes that maybe a demonic battle wasn't the best time for a confession. Tada is just as stunned, insisting she isn't worthy of someone like him. She brings up her past, saying her body is stained because of where she worked. Wazoo isn't hearing it. He shouts that he doesn't care about any of that, repeating that he likes her just the way she is. Tada is moved to tears by his sincerity. Behind them, the Count is absolutely livid that his property is being sweet-talked. Wazoo isn't in the mood for talk anymore. He lands a crushing blow, furious that the guy even thought he could claim Tada as his woman. The Count gets sent flying, coughing up a mysterious red orb. Wazoo picks it up, realizing this is the same kind of weird power source Kazuna used. With the threat gone, Wazoo carries Tada out of the wreckage. Reagan and the others show up, letting him know the goblin mess outside is all cleared up. Ninya rushes over, relieved that her sister is safe. Wazoo even gets a reluctant thank you for the cat girl for his help. Peace finally returns to Linux. The city is safe, and the people can go back to their normal lives thanks to Wazoo's intervention. The next morning, Wazoo is feeling refreshed. He's got big plans to invite Tada to travel with him today. He heads out with a grin, wondering if she'll actually say yes to his invitation. Over at the guild, Orlando and Reagan are going over the details of the red orbs. These things are basically instant monster transformation pills. They suspect a shady guy in a hood is behind the distribution. Orlando is assigned to track him down before more people get turned. Wazoo finds Reagan, who drops the bombshell. Tada already left the city with her family. He panics and runs to find her, only to bump into Ninya. She confirms the news. Tada didn't even leave a destination. Ninya explains that Tada did it for his sake. She didn't want her reputation to hold back a hero like him. Wazoo is left standing there, completely crushed. He understands her choice, but it doesn't make the parting any easier. Somewhere else, Salona is having a similar existential crisis. She missed her chance to join Wazoo's harem, and now she's just moping about it. Tada is also regretting the quick getaway. She wonders if she basically just goes to the guy who saved her. She can't hold it back anymore and screams out her love for Wazoo, much to the confusion of her family. Salona hears the shout from nearby and recognizes the name immediately. The elf approaches Tada, curious about her connection to Wazoo. They quickly realize they're both in the same boat. Salona is thrilled to find another potential harem member. Salona gets a bit bashful, admitting that Wazoo's simple charm is hard to resist. They bond over their shared feelings. Even though they're far away, both of their hearts belong to the same ordinary-looking hero. They start geeking out over him, agreeing that his mix of insane strength and innocent personality is a lethal combo. The two of them decide to swap stories about their time with him, officially forming the Wazoo fan club. Back in the city, things aren't quite as cheerful. Wazoo has been face down in his pillow for 5 days straight. Reagan and the guild staff are genuinely worried. The guy hasn't eaten a thing since Tada left. Orlando isn't the type for soft talks. He kicks the door open and tells Wazoo to wake up. Since Wazoo won't move, Orlando challenges him to a duel. He figures some physical exertion is the only way to snap him out of it. It's not much of a fight. Orlando gets tossed around like a rag doll, but Wazoo is still just too depressed to care. They take a break and sit on the grass. Orlando admits he can't even touch him, even when Wazoo is this miserable. Orlando points out how uncool he's being. Hiding in bed because of a girl isn't a good look for a guy this strong. He tells Wazoo he respected him from the bottom of his heart, and it's a shame to see him like this. Orlando keeps going, admitting that his real dream was to be someone like Wazoo, a man who actually stands up to protect those around him. He tells Wazoo he admired him way too much to just stand by and watch him waste away in his room over a girl. He genuinely considers him a friend. Orlando admits he's never had much confidence in himself, which is why he goes around trying to make friends to fill that empty spot in his heart. He confesses how much he envies people who have companions on their journey. For him, the loneliness just gets more miserable as the days pass. Orlando suddenly grabs Wazoo, shouting that he doesn't care if no one wants to follow him. He tells Wazoo to stop acting like his incredible strength is a curse. He reminds Wazoo that he saved an entire city and the woman he loved. Even if she's gone for now, he made her smile, and that should be plenty. Orlando paints a picture of a legendary traveler known across the world as a hero, someone who goes around solving problems and bringing back people's smiles. "Be that man," he yells. Wazoo is clearly touched, his face flushing as he realizes how much Orlando looks up to him. Wazoo takes a moment, a determined smile finally returning to his face as he thinks about the people he's saved and those he's met. He stands up with a new fire in his eyes, agreeing that Orlando's idea sounds like a great way to live. The little goddesses and his dragon pal are thrilled to see him back on his feet. They head back to the guild and drop the news on Reagan. Orlando is going to aim for knighthood, and Reagan is surprisingly supportive given his recent training with Wazoo. The guild staff is heartbroken to see their valuable asset leaving. Lula and Kayla tearfully beg Wazoo to come back and visit Linux again sometime. Reagan hands over his old adventurer's badge as a parting gift, mentioning it might help Wazoo out in the royal capital. He also warns him about his horrible elder sister who lives there. Wazoo, Orlando, and Mir finally set off. Ragnar and his family fly overhead in a grand send-off as the duo begins their long trek to the royal capital. Meanwhile, a carriage is barreling through the rain. Inside, Tada and Salona are hoping they can catch up to Wazoo before he gets too far. Salona thinks the whole situation is pretty amusing. Wazoo has managed to get himself two beautiful women chasing after him already. Ninya bluntly asks if the two of them are officially applying for Wazoo's harem. Tada gets incredibly flustered, while Salona just takes it in stride. Back on the road, Wazoo and Orlando's journey is already getting interesting. They find themselves face to face with a massive, snarling bear-like beast. Orlando is completely wiped out after taking down 30 monsters, but Wazoo is barely even breathing hard. He teases the knight for having such low stamina. Wazoo thinks about how Mir has been helping him stay strong by feeding him various things she finds. He carelessly bites into a mushroom, only for Mir to panic because it's poisonous. Orlando admits he used to be jealous of Wazoo's natural strength, but after traveling together, he sees it's not as effortless as it looks. Wazoo talks about his own goal, being the kind of person people can always rely on when they're in trouble. He tells Orlando he'll definitely make it as a knight, especially with Wazoo's Sparta training. As they settle in for the night, Mir uses her convenient space-time magic to handle all their gear. Orlando is still blown away by how handy she is. Orlando mentions that even if Mir can't turn human yet, she's already sticking by Wazoo's side like a devoted wife. He laughs, while Wazoo just looks a bit tired. The next morning starts with a jolt. Wazoo wakes Orlando up, sensing something wrong in the distance. Wazoo hears the sounds of struggle and shouts. He tells Orlando to move it. There are people in serious danger nearby. They stumble upon a group of bandits who have captured several women. The thugs are being incredibly gross, threatening the terrified captives. Among the prisoners is a female knight named Cassie. She's tied to a tree and fighting back with words, which only makes the bandit leader more aggressive. Wazoo and Orlando take cover in the brush to assess the situation. Wazoo confirms that there are several women being held at knife point. They don't waste any more time. Wazoo and Orlando burst out of the woods, completely catching the bandit crew off guard. Wazoo quickly delegates, telling Orlando to focus on the armor guys while he takes care of the rest of the mob. Orlando is nervous but knows he can't back down. The bandit leaders, the Dagondo brothers, are outraged that some random kids are ignoring their reputation. Wazoo just shouts back that he's never heard of them. Wazoo becomes a whirlwind, tearing through the bandits with ease. Orlando charges ahead, desperate to get the women out of harm's way. The fight is over before it even really starts. Wazoo's speed is on a completely different level, leaving a trail of unconscious thugs behind him. With a final, massive strike, Wazoo sends the last of the bandits flying. They're left in a groaning heap on the ground. Wazoo checks on the women, asking Mir for a water bottle to give them. He tries to untie Cassie, but her bulky armor makes it a bit of a struggle. Cassie introduces herself as the captain of a squad serving Princess Naminisha Manbond. She and her subordinates are deeply grateful for the rescue. Suddenly, a ring on Cassie's finger begins to glow. It's an emergency communication, and she hears that her allies are currently under heavy attack. Wazoo is a bit distracted by the name Cassie being cute, but the situation is serious. It turns out the princess herself is in danger nearby. The scene shifts to Mima Village, where Princess Naminisha is hunkered down. She's relieved to hear Cassie is okay, but they're pinned down by a large enemy force. Naminisha looks on in horror as a smoke screen fills the area. They're outnumbered and have no way to stand against so many enemies. She explains that they're trapped in a house on the outskirts, just waiting for the barrier to fail. Suddenly, the sounds of a violent intrusion echo through the building. Wazoo is in the middle of a frantic rescue, taking down the red-armored knights with a single, powerful blow. Princess Naminisha watches from the shadows of the house, her heart skipping a beat as she wonders who this mysterious savior could possibly be. As she stares at Wazoo's back, a feeling she's never felt before washes over her. Without even knowing his name, Naminisha realizes she has fallen in love at first sight. A few days earlier, back at Oishi Village, the group is wrapping things up after the bandit attack. Wazoo has decided to ensure the bandits don't escape by burying them up to their necks in the ground, creating a rather bizarre and pitiful flower garden of thugs. Cassie and her squad can only watch in disbelief. As they prepare to part ways, Cassie looks back at Wazoo and Orlando with a soft blush. She promises to meet them again someday, her gaze lingering a bit longer than usual. Orlando is clearly moved by her words, shouting her name with newfound passion. Cassie rides off with her squad, leaving the two travelers to continue their journey toward Mima Village. Wazoo can't help but feel a little jealous of Orlando's sudden popularity with the ladies. Meanwhile, Mir is happily perched on Wazoo's head, treating his messy hair like a cozy nest. Wazoo reflects on the types of women he's met so far. He thinks about Cassie. She's definitely cute, but her intense personality makes him a bit hesitant to say she's his type. The conversation turns to the urgent matter of Mima Village, where Naminisha is currently trapped. Wazoo learns that even at full gallop, it would take a horse an entire day to get there. Not wanting to waste a single second, Wazoo decides to just run there himself. He takes off like a rocket, leaving everyone behind in a cloud of dust as they marvel at his inhuman speed and stamina. By the following evening, they've set up camp near Mima Village. Cassie is incredibly grateful for Wazoo's help, but Wazoo has a specific favor he'd like to ask in return. He wants Cassie to help mediate Orlando's goal of becoming a knight once they reach the capital. Cassie is open to it, but she warns them that the unrest in the country of Manbond needs to be settled first. They finally reach Mima Village under the cover of night, only to find the streets eerily empty. Wazoo approaches a house on the outskirts, hoping to find the princess. Cassie fills them in on the details. 2 days ago, a large force of knights in red armor surrounded this house. Wazoo and Orlando realize these are the same guys who were working with the bandits earlier. Outside the house, the red-armored knights have set up a siege. They taunt those inside, telling them their magic barrier is only a temporary fix and they should just surrender now. Seeing the situation, Wazoo doesn't hesitate. He tells Orlando and Cassie he's going alone. Cassie tries to stop him, worried that these trained knights are a far greater threat than any bandits. Wazoo completely ignores the concept of stealth, appearing right in front of the knights before they even know what's happening. With a casual ease that defies logic, Wazoo starts sending the armored men flying through the air. The knights are left in a state of pure shock as their formation is shattered in seconds. Wazoo is nothing more than a blur to his enemies, striking them down with such force that their armor offers almost no protection. He stands tall amidst the fallen soldiers, his expression stern. He makes it clear that if they have any intentions of harming the people inside, they'll have to go through him first. Inside the house, Naminisha is mesmerized by the amazing rampage unfolding before her eyes. She can't believe such an ordinary-looking person could possess such overwhelming power. With the enemies dealt with, Wazoo signals that it's safe. Orlando and Cassie catch up, both stunned by the scale of the destruction Wazoo has caused in such a short time. Cassie is the first to enter the house, calling out to her master to let her know the rescue has arrived. The door opens, and Princess Naminisha Manbond steps out. She finds herself face-to-face with the man who just single-handedly saved her life. Naminisha doesn't say a word at first. She just walks right up to Wazoo, her eyes locked onto his in an intense, unwavering stare. She leans in close, way too close, demanding to know his name. Wazoo is completely flustered by the sudden intimacy, his face turning a bright shade of red as he manages to stutter out his name. Hearing his name seems to fill Naminisha with joy. She repeats it with a beaming smile, already adding the Sama honorific to his name. Even once they're all inside the house, Naminisha refuses to give Wazoo any personal space. He tries to keep his distance, but she insists that there's no need for formality between them. Cassie officially introduces the group, confirming that Naminisha is the second princess of the Manbond Kingdom. Naminisha, however, is much more interested in chatting with Wazoo. Floyd, the princess's personal butler, introduces himself as well. He admits he was deeply moved by the good taste Wazoo showed when he decided to bury the fallen knights in the ground. Next is Kiyomiya, the princess's personal maid. She's incredibly shy and clearly overwhelmed by the presence of a man as strong as Wazoo. Kiyomiya is so nervous that she ends up tripping over her words, her face turning beet red as she tries to introduce herself. Wazoo can't help but notice her extremely unbalanced proportions. Wazoo finds himself staring, much to Naminisha's annoyance. She gives him a sharp glare, sensing that his attention has wandered away from her. Orlando introduces himself as a simple soldier, clarifying that he's the one traveling to the capital and Wazoo is just his companion. The conversation then shifts to the incredible feat of Wazoo taking down all the knights by himself. Naminisha is looking at Wazoo with literal hearts in her eyes, making him feel more than a little uncomfortable. Suddenly, Wazoo feels a strange sensation and realizes he needs to step away for a moment. He pulls out his status board, only to find the goddesses inside are having a full-blown argument. It seems the goddess of Mother Earth has just suffered a crushing defeat in their latest squabble. The goddesses are shouting at each other about breast sizes and Wazoo's purity. Wazoo is completely done with their antics, wishing they would just leave him alone for once. While Wazoo is distracted, Naminisha pulls Orlando aside. She tentatively asks if Wazoo already has a lover, clearly hoping for a specific answer. Orlando explains that Wazoo is currently single, though he notes that Wazoo's past experiences have left him with very little confidence when it comes to women. This information only seems to strengthen Naminisha's resolve. Wazoo returns to the group and asks for the real reason why the princess and her retinue had to flee the royal capital. Naminisha begins to explain the royal family of Manbond. She talks about her parents, the king and queen, and her elder brother Navilio, who is the heir to the throne. She then introduces herself and her twin elder sister, Naralina. While Naminisha is known as the bloodless holy princess for her protective magic, her sister is the Blood Rain Valkyrie, a warrior so strong she's feared by other nations. Naminisha continues her story, explaining that the peace of the royal family was shattered when her parents fell into a mysterious coma. To make matters worse, her elder brother Navilio and twin sister Naralina suddenly turned on each other, treating their own kin like sworn enemies. They suspect that this sudden madness wasn't natural. Navilio had begun wearing a strange bracelet, and Naralina a peculiar necklace, both appearing right before their personalities shifted. Wazoo and the others realize there must be a dark force pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Wazoo recognizes the descriptions immediately. He recalls what Relaya, the master of the Adventurers Guild headquarters, had once told him about two stolen curse tools, the immature puppet bracelet and the feast of the berserker necklace. These items grant power, but slowly consume the wearer's mind. Knowing the tools are the source of the conflict, Wazoo suggests a direct approach: simply destroy them. While Naminisha is hesitant to use force against her siblings, Wazoo assures her that he can handle it without hurting them. Orlando, though skeptical of Wazoo's bluntness, admits that his friend's strength is their best bet. Naminisha is captivated by Wazoo's unwavering confidence. When he jokes about how even a god sword can't leave a scratch on him, she finds herself genuinely impressed by his carefree attitude. She begins to see him as a true hero who has come to save her family. As they talk, Naminisha admits how lonely she has felt since her siblings stopped recognizing her. Wazoo, thinking of his own younger sister, offers her a comforting smile and some kind words. His empathy hits home, leaving Naminisha deeply touched and more than a little flustered by his kindness. Outside of the official guild channels, Naminisha makes a personal, informal request. She wants Wazoo to save her brother and sister. Wazoo doesn't hesitate for a second, accepting the task with a bright, cheerful grin that leaves Naminisha and Orlando momentarily stunned. Naminisha's heart swells with gratitude, but Wazoo has one small condition for his service. He asks the princess to give Orlando a genuine chance to become a knight, a selfless request that moves Orlando to the verge of tears. Orlando is overwhelmed by his friend's support, while Naminisha is happy to agree. She notes that Wazoo's character is just as impressive as his physical strength. However, she decides that a simple favor isn't enough of a reward for someone of Wazoo's caliber. With a mischievous yet sincere smile, Naminisha announces that she has already decided on Wazoo's reward. She looks him straight in the eyes and declares, "Your reward would be me," leaving Wazoo completely speechless and Orlando in total shock. To Wazoo's further embarrassment, Naminisha insists that he drop the formal titles and just call her by her name. She leans in close, encouraging him to speak to her as an equal, which only adds to the young adventurer's confusion and blushing face. With the plan set, the group agrees to leave for the royal capital the following morning. Naminisha's playful yet determined attitude makes it clear that she has no intention of letting Wazoo escape her grasp anytime soon. Later that night, Floyd the butler offers Wazoo a friendly warning. Don't let the charms of the house's maid, Kumiya, distract him. Naminisha doesn't take kindly to the butler's suggestive comment, delivering a swift kick to his backside that sends him flying. The next morning, Wazoo is surprised to find that Kumiya seems like an entirely different person. Floyd explains that she has a split personality. The shy girl from before has been replaced by Komiua, a much sharper and more assertive version of the maid. Kumua is blunt and bossy, but she still takes her duties seriously, insisting on helping Wazoo with his morning routine. Wazoo is completely overwhelmed by her aggressive approach, while Mir watches the whole spectacle with a look of mild amusement. Left alone for a moment, Wazoo reflects on the strange people he's met. He talks to Mir, admitting he feels a bit self-conscious about his naked state and wondering if he should try to appear more human like the dragons he's known. Mir simply continues to stare at him, unblinking. Wazoo laughs it off, telling Mir that she's perfect just the way she is. As they head outside to meet the others, he's greeted by a bright and cheerful Naminisha, who seems more than ready to start their journey to the capital. Naminisha notices that Wazoo's robe is a bit crooked and reaches out to fix it for him. The casual intimacy of the gesture makes Wazoo's heart race, and Naminisha can't help but tease him, calling him a sinful man for making her feel this way. After a short journey, the magnificent spires of the royal capital Manbond finally come into view. It's a massive, bustling metropolis, far larger than anything Wazoo has seen before, and its scale is truly breathtaking. As they reach the gates, Cassie explains the final part of their plan. She and her squad will take Relaya to the castle first, while Wazoo and Naminisha will prepare to confront the cursed siblings. Everyone is tense, but determined to see this through to the end. Entering the city, Wazoo is like a child in a candy store, marveling at the endless rows of buildings and the throngs of people. Naminisha explains that the capital is divided into 3 sections: the royal castle, the noble ward, and the outer ward. They talk about the kingdom's history, and Naminisha credits her father for the city's prosperity. She's surprised to hear Wazoo is from the distant country of Iskoa, noting that Manbond must seem much more developed in comparison. Suddenly, the peaceful moment is shattered by the sound of a carriage racing recklessly through the crowded street. Wazoo's instincts kick in, and he shouts Naminisha's name, reaching out to pull her to safety before the horses can strike. Wazoo pulls the princess into a protective embrace, his quick reflexes saving her from a nasty fall. Naminisha stares up at him, her face flushing crimson as she feels the strength of the man who has protected her once again. Meanwhile, the mysterious carriage continues on, its driver completely ignoring the chaos they left behind. Wazoo and Princess Naminisha had barely arrived when they ran straight into the arrogant noble Denroga. He clung to the princess, babbling on without paying any attention to his surroundings. Annoyed, Naminisha introduced Wazoo as her personal bodyguard to gently shoo him away. Denroga looked Wazoo up and down with contempt, unable to believe the man was any threat. The princess decisively dismissed the guest and turned her back. Denroga tried to save face by reminding her of the marriage arrangement between their families. Naminisha sneered and bade him farewell, leaving the pampered noble fuming. Wazoo looked puzzled and asked what the talk of marriage was about. She pursed her lips and explained the power of the Freban clan and their scheme to force the marriage. This scene revealed that the kingdom actually had 2 royal lineages coexisting. Naminisha declared bluntly that she would annul the betrothal once the king woke. She pressed close to Wazoo and said that his reward would be herself. Just as they were intimate, the maids and steward rushed out to meet them. Naminisha worriedly wanted to see her brother, Prince Navilio, immediately, but the guards refused to let them in, insisting it was Navilio's own order. In the end, they were only allowed to look from a distance through the door crack. Inside, Navilio sat dazed amid piles of paperwork, his eyes vacant like a puppet being pulled by strings. The princess, heartbroken, recounted how her brother had suddenly changed, working frantically without regard for anything else. Unable to hold back her tears, Naminisha begged Wazoo to save her brother. In a flash, Wazoo lunged into the room with terrifying speed, kicking up a cloud of dust. Before the guards could understand what was happening, Wazoo was already at the prince's side. A red-armored man reached for his sword to attack, but Wazoo was quicker, knocking him down instantly. It turned out the culprits were those red-armored men. After dealing with the traitor, Wazoo reassured everyone that the situation was under control. Navilio slowly regained consciousness to the astonishment of his attendants. Naminisha ran forward and threw her arms around her brother. Navilio vaguely awoke and realized he'd been mentally controlled by someone else. With the curse broken, the siblings embraced, half laughing, half crying. Wazoo scratched his head outside, truly a small matter for him. Navilio sincerely thanked him and was about to bow in gratitude. Wazoo panicked and stopped him, reminding him that after all, he was still a royal. The prince was playful too, insisting Wazoo call him brother-in-law to be intimate. Naminisha blushed in embarrassment. While they were joyful, Wazoo mentioned Princess Neralina. Navilio pointed toward the garden, where another tragedy was unfolding. In the garden, the eldest sister Neralina was raging, wearing armor and wildly swinging her sword. She looked terrifying, screaming and attacking anyone who dared approach, sending the maids scattering. Navilio explained that his sister was the army's commander, but she was now being controlled by a dark power that made her violent. Inside, Neralina was struggling fiercely, but her body wouldn't obey. She felt helpless as she harmed those around her. Wazoo quietly stepped out to confront her. His gaze was calm in the face of the princess's fury. Neralina roared, threatening to take his head if he didn't leave. Wazoo narrowed his eyes. He noticed something strange on her neck. A thunderous slash struck, cracking the ground open. Naminisha screamed in terror for Wazoo's sake. But when the dust cleared, Wazoo was still standing there unharmed. He brushed off his clothes and declared, "My turn." Neralina continued to attack wildly with her sword, but her speed was no match for Wazoo's. Wazoo closed in at incredible speed and, barehanded, subdued the princess who had gone mad. A crack echoed as Wazoo snapped the magical necklace and Neralina's breastplate. The necklace shattered. Wazoo nonchalantly remarked that that ugly thing didn't suit her beauty at all. The magic was broken, and Neralina froze to see herself lying snugly in the arms of a stranger. Seeing Wazoo's face up close, the once steely princess felt her heart suddenly race. The madness faded, replaced by overwhelming embarrassment. Wazoo still held her calmly to keep her from falling. Neralina mumbled to ask his name. As Wazoo answered, Naminisha shouted from a distance in full jealousy. Seeing both her brother and sister safe, Naminisha showed obvious relief but didn't forget to mark her territory with Wazoo. She flew into a rage, scolding Wazoo for holding her sister so long. Wazoo could only smile wryly as his kindness was misunderstood. Neralina, amused by her sister's jealousy, teased that Wazoo's embrace was warm and extremely manly. Prince Navilio watched and could only grin. He recalled how the sisters used to fight over toys. Now, their target was Wazoo. The two princesses decided to share Wazoo instead of fighting over him. Wazoo broke into a cold sweat, feeling his freedom slipping away. Navilio was pleased with this peaceful resolution. Wazoo, however, began to worry as matters advanced alarmingly fast. All was calm. Naminisha and Neralina chattered by Wazoo's side. Neralina beamed, saying she felt utterly happy now. After reassuring the maids, the group moved to the king and queen's chamber, where the couple remained in a deep sleep. Standing by the sickbed, the sisters sadly looked at their parents. Although Wazoo had lifted the curse from the two children, the king and queen showed no sign of waking. Orlando and Cassie were already there. Everyone worried because ordinary restorative magic was completely ineffective in this case. At that moment, a special visitor arrived. Relea, guildmaster of the Adventurers Guild and sister of the burly Reagan. Wazoo almost dropped his jaw at the guildmaster's beauty. She had an extremely hot figure and an aura of authority. Flustered, Wazoo produced his C-rank guild card. Relea looked at the card, then at Wazoo with a skeptical gaze. She introduced herself as head of the Adventurers Guild headquarters in the capital. Though she'd heard Orlando's stories about Wazoo, she wanted to test his abilities herself. Relea smiled knowingly at how many people trusted Wazoo. She began to examine the king's condition. After inspection, She concluded this was not an ordinary curse, but the effect of a long-lost ancient sleeping potion. Just as they were at an impasse, the small creature Mir had an idea. It said someone very old likely knew about this potion. So Wazoo set off immediately for the Snow Mountain to see the Black Dragon King Ragnar. He carried Mir on his head and sped away. Upon arrival, Wazoo saw an ancient castle emerge amid the white snow. But it seemed he was about to face a few new troubles. A group of high-level monsters suddenly appeared to block the path. They declared themselves mountain guardians and demanded to play with Wazoo. The group consisted of a skeleton, an elf, a werewolf, and a golden lion. Each looked fierce and overconfident. The lion Gain lunged to attack, but Wazoo sent him flying with a single move. The others froze at how easily their comrade was defeated. At that moment, Ragnar appeared and laughed loudly. It turned out they were all old friends of the ancient dragon, and he was mocking his minions for daring to touch the monster Wazoo. These natural enemies were utterly routed by Wazoo. The lion even complained that its tooth got broken despite the opponent being unharmed. Once they learned Wazoo was Ragnar's friend, they instantly switched to a friendly attitude. The old dragon introduced Gain, Zi, Rudo, and Nil to him in turn. The elf named Rudo suddenly revealed his true nature. He proclaimed himself a high-level pervert, obsessively fond of female elves' chests and buttocks. Wazoo was at a loss for words at this eccentric elf, then turned to ask Nil about an antidote. Nil confirmed it was caused by an ancient potion and that they needed the correct anti-magic remedy to save the king. Nil said they had to go to his laboratory to brew the medicine. But the distance from here back to the capital was far for an ordinary being. Wazoo declared he'd carry Nil and run back within one night. Nil panicked and refused, fearing soldiers or dogs would attack at the sight of a walking skeleton. Wazoo assured Nil he'd keep him safe. The skeleton was moved to tears, saying it had been a long time since someone treated him so well. Finally, Nil agreed to help, but with a terribly awkward condition. He wanted to gaze upon everyone's happy faces when the king woke. Not only that, he asked Wazoo to introduce him to any skeleton with a nice clavicle if he saw one. Wazoo could only stand frozen at the group's perversion. So Wazoo hoisted the skeleton onto his back and dashed straight for the palace. The terrifying speed almost shattered Nil. His bones creaked all the way. Orlando and the guards were startled when Wazoo suddenly returned carrying a skeleton draped in a black cloak. Meeting Prince Navilio again, Nil was very impressed by his composure. He couldn't stop praising the young prince's presence. Wazoo immediately exposed Nil when he boasted about being a scholar, pointing out he had just been terrified of dogs and soldiers. Relea suddenly recognized the skeleton's true identity. She asked in astonishment whether this was the legendary Demon King from the tales. The title Demon King made the room fall silent. Nil only chuckled, saying the name brought back many old memories. Nil approached the sickbed to examine them. He confirmed it was the ancient eternal sleeping potion. Using force to wake them would severely damage the patient's bodies. To save them, they must manufacture the corresponding antidote. Everyone listened intently to the words of the 1,000-year wizard. The most crucial missing ingredient was the vampire fawn. At the mention, everyone shuddered at the danger of that creature. Wazoo planned to go alone, but the two princesses insisted on accompanying him. They screamed and begged, leaving him awkward and unsure what to do. Naralina asserted her swordsmanship was the kingdom's best, and Aminisha was confident in her defensive magic. Both wanted to personally save their parents. Wazoo finally had a nod in agreement. The two girls ran off joyfully to prepare gear for the upcoming adventure. Relea promised to promote Wazoo to B rank if he completed the mission. The mention of a reward immediately energized him. A while later, the two princesses returned in field gear. Naminisha looked very energetic, while Naralina was extremely alluring in her sleek armor. Seeing they had packed camping equipment, Wazoo began to worry. He hadn't imagined he'd have to sleep outdoors with these two delicate princesses. The sisters talked about how long it had been since they'd left the palace. Though a bit anxious, For their family, they were ready to face any challenge with Wazoo. On the road, Wazoo boldly declared he would protect the two princesses from all danger. He was very enthusiastic about this adventure. But as evening fell, a thorny problem arose. Butler Floyd had prepared only one tent for the three of them. Wazoo began to break into a sweat. While Wazoo was still flustered, Neminisha and Naralina quickly divided the sleeping positions. Naralina grinned triumphantly after claiming the prime spot. Overrun by the two girls, Wazoo could only curl up in a lonely corner. He even struck a doleful ancient Egyptian sitting posed to console himself. The next morning the group continued their journey. Naralina came up with the idea of teaching Wazoo to ride so travel would be easier for him. However, sitting directly behind Naralina with her ample assets pressing against his back made it impossible for Wazoo to concentrate. He found the situation more dangerous than fighting monsters. Seeing her sister attack Wazoo, Neminisha couldn't help but be jealous. She wanted a chance to be close to him like that too. When they stopped to rest, Neminisha immediately cast a protective spell. Wazoo was still bright red from what had just happened on the horse's back. To break the awkward atmosphere, the two princesses began discussing hair care products. Wazoo was puzzled, not knowing what shampoo or conditioner even were. Naralina proudly boasted that her hair always smelled lovely even after a long day on the road. She eagerly told Wazoo to take a sniff. Embarrassed, Wazoo inhaled Naralina's hair and had to admit it smelled of pleasant roses. The closeness sent his heart racing. When asked about his purpose for the trip, Wazoo accidentally revealed his original dream of creating a harem. The two princesses were shocked. Seeing the horrified expressions on their faces, Wazoo quickly clarified that now he only wanted to help people in need. Wazoo's sincerity and kindness moved Neminisha and Naralina. They quietly resolved to make him fall in love with them at any cost. That night, in the cramped tent, the two princesses decided to enact their share Wazoo plan. They dressed extremely seductively to tempt him. At once they hugged Wazoo from both sides while he slept deeply. They wore knowing smiles, ready for a night of no sleep. Early the next morning, Wazoo jolted awake and nearly fainted when he found himself wedged between the two beautiful, scantily clad princesses. The scent of their skin and the physical contact left Wazoo dazed. He had to summon all his willpower to maintain his manhood. In his confusion, Wazoo accidentally spotted a sensitive item on the tent floor. He felt his life had slipped into an absurd predicament. When full daylight came, Wazoo breathed a sigh of relief at having survived a trying night. The two princesses were ecstatic and prepared a hearty breakfast. The group finally found the cave where Nil said the vampires lived. Instead of gloom, they discovered a tidy little house and a lush green field. A shirtless, brown-skinned young man was happily watering the vegetables in the bright sun. He bore no resemblance to the bloodthirsty vampire of legend. This young man's name was Riol. He even chatted affectionately with each tomato and cabbage. Wazoo and the two princesses stood frozen at the bizarre sight. At the sight of the two beautiful girls, Riol immediately blushed and became extremely shy. He flailed about trying awkwardly to cover himself. The group began to doubt whether he was really a vampire, a creature of the night who loved sunlight and gardening like this. Suddenly, Riol changed his tone and tried to sound dangerous, introducing himself as someone who would bring death to them. His act fooled no one. Faced with Wazoo's group's terrifying silence, Riol immediately lost heart. He apologized profusely for the failed introduction and begged to start over. Riol dashed inside the house and then reappeared with his old posture, though this time he didn't even bother to hide his embarrassment before the guests. He tried to roar to add dramatic flair to his presence, but the result was only a pathetic fit of coughing. It turned out he had choked on water, interrupting the conversation. Wazoo looked at this odd vampire with utter disappointment. Riol knelt down again, begging for one last chance to display his majesty. The two princesses were at a loss for words at this petty vampire, but unfortunately, the sunlight was too harsh and dazzled him. and a swarm of bats dove into attack, making him scream miserably and flee for his life. Wazoo lost his patience. He glared at Riol threateningly. The old vampire turned pale and begged desperately not to be slain. Riol completely collapsed, crying and pleading for forgiveness. Wazoo explained they only needed a vampire fong to make a cure for the patient. Hearing that, Riol breathed a sigh of relief. He was surprised to see Wazoo's group didn't intend to take his life or harvest other parts of his body. He happily removed a fong and even carefully tied a pink bow on it as a gift for Wazoo. The boy accepted the present, bewildered by the excessive enthusiasm. Wazoo wondered how a vampire could withstand sunlight. Riol proudly said it was the result of rigorous training, persistence, and patience. Riol began to recount his tragic life. He had lived alone in this cave so long that he couldn't remember how many days he'd been here. He was moved to tears that someone would listen to him. Apart from one visitor named Anine who stopped by occasionally, he had no one to confide in. Riol revealed a shocking secret. Although he was a winged vampire like a bat, he was actually terrified of bats. He lived here to find a way to overcome that fear. The reason was that as a child he had been bitten on the hand by a bat. Wazoo and the two girls didn't know whether to laugh or cry for this cowardly vampire. Wazoo felt pity watching Riol writhe in fear of bats. He thought to himself that this guy was hopelessly lovesick for his fiancée. Riol was now sobbing, but not from fear of bats. He feared Wazoo. This new fear completely overshadowed the old one, making the bats seem no longer frightening. Riol joyfully thanked Wazoo profusely for helping him overcome his fear. He excitedly invited Wazoo to his wedding with Anine, then flapped away out of sight. After completing the task, the group quickly returned to the Manbon capital. Wazoo was still dazed, not yet recovered from the absurd situations he'd just experienced. On the way back, Wazoo again found himself in an awkward position sharing a horse with the princesses. He had to struggle to push away the dark thoughts crowding his mind. Wazoo recalled the scene in the tent last night when Naminisha and Naralina clung to him without letting go. It was truly a severe test of his resolve. Back at the palace, Wazoo and the two princesses immediately went to see Nil. Meanwhile, Navilio was also present to help prepare the cure for the king. While waiting for the medicine to take effect, the old skeleton Nil resumed his womanizing ways, flirting with a maid. He kept insisting on polishing her clavicle, making her turn pale. Angered, Wazoo delivered a mighty kick that sent Nil flying into the wall. He ordered the old man to focus on brewing the medicine instead of harassing others. The drug was finally completed. Nil handed Wazoo a vial that glittered and assured him it would counteract the effects of the eternal sleeping potion. Still, the old man couldn't resist showing off his eccentric personality. Navilio led Wazoo and his two sisters into the king's chamber. He trusted Nil's skill and hoped his father would soon wake from the long, dark slumber. Navilio began to drip the medicine into King Gavilio Manbon's mouth. Naminisha and Naralina stood tensely by, silently praying for their father's recovery. Just seconds later, the king suddenly sprang up and shouted about the crimes he had just witnessed. His abrupt awakening shocked everyone present. However, instead of anger, the king blushed bright red like a young maiden waking up. Wazoo and Navilio stared in confusion, not understanding what was happening to their king. King Gavilio looked as if he had awoken from an extremely beautiful and somewhat sensitive dream. He sheepishly asked about the current situation and thanked everyone for rescuing him from the stupor. Once fully lucid, King Gavilio scanned the room with a bewildered expression. He still didn't understand what had brought his whole family together at his bedside like this. The king embraced his two beloved daughters, who were weeping with joy. The touching reunion took place right in the royal bedchamber, witnessed by Wazoo and Navilio. Shortly after, the queen also woke. She yawned a long yawn and looked at everyone with a gentle face, unaware she had just survived a life-threatening ordeal. Navilio quickly explained to his parents the plot to seize the kingdom. They decided to pretend they were still under control for the time, being to lure the mastermind into the open. At that point, Wazoo formally introduced himself to the king. He humbly claimed to be merely a C-rank adventurer from his homeland. Both the king and queen expressed their deep gratitude to Wazoo. They recognized in him a rare sincerity and kindness that had helped save the Man-Bond royal family. To repay him, King Gavilio smiled knowingly and declared he would grant Wazoo an extremely special reward that he could not refuse. The reward was that Wazoo would live a comfortable, leisurely life in a splendid mansion within the kingdom. Wazoo was alarmed upon hearing this, because he did not want to end his journey. Navilio then led everyone outside to discuss the next tactical plan. Although still shocked by the reward, Wazoo remained willing to help the kingdom to the end. Wazoo encouraged the knight Orlando to train hard to become a skilled warrior. He walked down the palace corridor, his mind full of thoughts about the challenges ahead. Wazoo wakes up with a massive yawn. He's been out cold for 2 days straight, but at least Cassie was there to keep watch. After sleeping that long, he's basically a prune. Cassie hands him some water and helps him clean up while mentioning how much everyone's been worrying. Cassie's really doting on him, and Wazoo can't help but notice she's looking a lot cuter today. Or maybe he's just still half asleep. Then she drops a bombshell. She basically asks him to marry her. Wazoo's brain completely short-circuits. He says he'll think about it positively just to survive the moment. Time to get serious. Cassie breaks down the plan. Navilio and Neralina are leading 1,000 knights each to Bond Plains. The siblings are faking a fight to lure out the guy who cursed them. Rumors are already spreading that the king and queen are still out cold to keep the bait juicy. Cassie admits this is a big ask, but Wazoo is their heavy hitter. They need him in the capital just in case things go south. She hands him a communication ring so they can stay in touch from a distance. She's determined to protect Neminisha, even if it costs her everything. The plan is set. The royals are going to play their parts and pretend the cursed items are still working. Wazoo's ready to move. He stuffs mirror on his head and prepares to head out while the others see him off. Neminisha and Cassie give him one last "be careful" as he heads toward the gate. Wazoo just waves back, telling them to count on him. Meanwhile, a creepy dude in a hood is watching from the sidelines. He's loving the show and seems way too excited about the army. He's particularly interested in seeing how a certain strongest man handles things. This isn't going to be a simple skirmish. Back at the palace, the king and queen are stuck playing dead. It's a lot harder to pretend to sleep than it looks, especially when the queen starts talking in hers. Relea is still puzzling over why Neminisha was the only one not affected by the curse or the drugs. It's a big clue they haven't cracked yet. She's convinced the culprit is trying to get close to the princess. If that guy shows his face, she's ready to strike first. Relea and Neminisha aren't just sitting around. One's got a whip, the other's got a sword, and they both have zero forgiveness left for the mastermind. Mir seems to sense something's off as they watch from the window. Down in the city, that hooded guy is still lurking around. On the plains, the tension is thick enough to choke on. The two armies are finally face to face. Neralina and Navilio take their positions at the front. The fake sibling rivalry is about to go live. They start screaming threats at each other, really selling the "I'm gonna kill you" vibe. The knights charge, and the chaos begins. Wazoo is watching the battle from a distance, and honestly, he thinks they're having a little too much fun with the fake fight. He focuses back on the mission. He needs to make sure the siblings stay safe while they wait for the trap to spring. Wazoo triggers his presence, sensing to check the surroundings. He immediately spots a group of people hiding in the woods. His eyes widen as he feels a massive surge of power. There's one guy in that group who's on a completely different level. Wazoo realizes he's looking at an S-rank adventurer. This just went from a farce to a death match. Down on the field, Navilio and Neralina hit the dirt as planned. The bait is set, and now they just have to wait for the bite. From the shadows, the mastermind watches the royals fall. He thinks he's just seen the greatest act ever. Denroga starts laughing like a maniac. Wazoo finally sees the face of the guy behind all this misery. Relea and Neminisha are done waiting. They're heading straight for the plains to settle the score once and for all. Denroga steps out, looking way too smug. He's dropped the timid fiancé act and is ready to claim his prize. He admits he wanted the whole royal family dead from the start. Since his cursed items got trashed, he's decided to finish the job himself. Wazoo spots the knights in red armor and remembers them. Those are the same guys who attacked Naminisha's village. Denroga drops his fake name and reveals his true identity. He's Deo Gunnerbond, the son of the previous king. He claims to be a secret child and the rightful heir to the throne. Naminisha and Orlando ride up just in time to hear the nonsense. To him, the current royal family is just a bunch of actors standing in the way of his crown. He's done talking and is ready to start the executions. He thinks he's already won. Relea recognizes the massive guy standing next to him. That's Frujair Razor. She warns Wazoo that this guy is an S-rank beast specialized in close-quarters combat. He's basically a walking meat grinder. Frujair stands tall, radiating an overwhelming presence. He's known as the strongest man for a reason. Denroga's got a twisted grin on his face. He thinks this whole situation is getting interesting. Orlando and his men finally catch up to the front line. He recognizes that red armor instantly. The nightmare is starting all over again. Navilio thinks he's got the advantage since Denroga is outnumbered by over 1,000 knights. He tries to play the bigger man and offers Denroga one last chance to surrender quietly. Denroga just laughs in his face. He points out that he's got an S-rank powerhouse like Frujair Razor on his side, which basically levels the playing field. Orlando and the others can't believe their ears. They're up against the same rank as Wazoo. Denroga is weirdly confident for a guy facing an army. Navilio thinks he's just bluffing because there's nowhere for reinforcements to hide in the open forest, but he's about to find out how wrong he is. That's when Denroga pulls out a pitch-black orb. Wazoo recognizes it instantly. It's the same kind of cursed object that caused the chaos in the elf village. If that thing breaks, the whole plain is going to turn into a monster-infested nightmare. Wazoo tries to shout a warning, but it's too late. Denroga smashes the orb, and a swirl of dark energy starts tearing through the sky. Everyone freezes in pure terror. Denroga calls it the Gospel of Darkness. The ground starts cracking as the curse takes hold, and Wazoo tells everyone to run while they still can. They're dealing with something way beyond a simple civil war now. Wazoo is shaking as he realizes the magnitude of the threat. The elves told him these things could control hundreds of monsters, and Denroga just used it like it was a cheap toy. Then things get even weirder. Instead of summoning a horde, the dark energy starts sinking into Denroga himself. He's planning to become the monster he wants to unleash. Wazoo can barely find the words to describe the horror unfolding in front of him. Giant monsters start erupting from the darkness, surrounding the knights. Navilio snaps back into command mode, telling his men to protect the royals at all costs. The fair fight is officially over. Denroga mocks them for trying to win with numbers, calling it bullying the weak. He turns his attention to Naminisha, saying she's the only one who can fill his heart. Frujair Razor steps in to block Wazoo, telling him to stop being a pest. Wazoo is blocked by Frujair, and before he can move, Denroga does something truly insane. He actually swallows the black orb whole. The girls can only watch in horror as his body starts to warp and twist. Denroga's skin starts bubbling with disgusting blisters as he laughs like a lunatic. He's overflowing with dark energy, and he looks like he's having the time of his life as he transforms into a literal demon. He sprouts massive, jagged claws and tells the royals he's going to tear them into tiny pieces. Naralina draws her sword, refusing to forgive him no matter what freakish form he takes. She's not backing down without a fight. Denroga lunges at the princesses, his power completely off the charts. Naralina tries to parry, but the force of his attack is so strong it practically shatters the air around them. Naminisha shouts for her sister to get a new weapon before she gets killed. Denroga is just toying with them now, shredding their defenses with ease. Cassie jumps into the fray to buy them some time. While Wazoo is still stuck trying to get past Frujair, Navilio is down, and the situation is looking grimmer by the second. Navilio feels useless having to rely on Wazoo's strength, but Wazoo just tells him to stay back and take care of the others. He promises to handle the S-rank monster in front of him, even if he has to take a few hits to do it. Wazoo and Frugier are finally ready to square off properly. Wazoo is trying to stay positive, even offering some reassuring words to the prince. He's going to buy everyone enough time to retreat or die trying. Wazoo tells Mir to go wait in a safe place while he settles things. Mir doesn't want to leave, but Wazoo gives her a quick smile, promising to listen to whatever she has to say once the dust settles. Frugier is tired of the talk and tells them to get on with it. Frugier starts laughing, glad that he finally found an opponent who isn't boring. He thinks Wazoo might actually be able to entertain him for more than 5 seconds. Wazoo just grins back, ready to show him exactly what a real fight looks like. The two heavyweights charge at each other, their speed so intense they're basically just blurs on the field. It's a clash of pure physical power that makes the ground tremble with every step they take. They trade a flurry of blows, neither one giving an inch. Wazoo is giving it everything he's got, but Frugier is meeting him strike for strike. It's like watching two mountains try to push each other over. Wazoo takes a massive kick to the gut that sends him flying back. Frugier is impressively fast for a guy that size, and Wazoo is starting to realize that raw power might not be enough to take this guy down. Frugier starts critiquing Wazoo's fighting style, calling him an amateur with the movements of a barbarous wild beast. He admits Wazoo has insane physical ability, but says there's zero technique behind his attacks. It's like fighting a very angry tree. Frugier is disappointed, saying he expected more from an S-rank equivalent. He decides to end this quickly, so he can go join the Real battle happening over by the princesses. Wazoo refuses to let him go, desperately trying to keep the monster focused on him. Frugier says he's going to teach Wazoo what a real S-rank is. He's got this weirdly calm smile on his face as he prepares his next move, while Wazoo is struggling just to catch his breath. The skill gap is starting to look like a canyon. Frugier delivers a concentrated burst of energy right into Wazoo's chest. It's not just a punch, it's something far more dangerous. Wazoo screams in pain as the force of the attack ripples through his entire body. Wazoo collapses, coughing up blood. He's never felt anything like this before. His external defense is perfect, but whatever Frugier did just bypassed his skin and went straight for his internals. He's dying from the inside out. Frugier explains his technique. By releasing his magic power directly into his opponent's body, he can cause massive internal damage without having to break their skin. He tells Wazoo to just lay there and suffer while he finishes his job. He reveals his nickname is Destroyer, because no matter how invulnerable someone is on the outside, their organs are always soft. Wazoo can only watch through a haze of pain as Frugier turns his back and starts walking away. Meanwhile, Denroga is having a blast slaughtering the knights. Cassie tries to intervene, but the demon-transformed prince is just too strong and too fast. He's laughing at their pathetic attempts to stop him. Denroga is practically a blur, tearing through anyone who gets near the princesses. Naralina gets knocked back hard, her sword nearly flying from her hand. They're running out of defenders, and the mastermind is just getting warmed up. Naminisha steps in to protect her sister, but Denroga just sneers at her. He tells her she's next, and he doesn't care if she was supposed to be his bride. He's going to enjoy breaking her spirit before he kills her. The sisters are backed into a corner. Naralina is barely holding on, and Naminisha is terrified but refuses to move. Denroga is loving the drama, calling them a troublesome royal family that needs to be deleted. Naminisha tries to stand her ground, telling Denroga that she was the one who disagreed with the engagement from the start. She's satisfied with the current situation because it means she never has to marry a monster like him. Denroga just laughs, saying it's a bit late for complaints. She shouts that she's already met the person she wants to marry, and it definitely isn't him. Denroga's face twists in rage as he decides to cut her head off right then and there. Even if her life ends, she's not going to let him win the argument. Denroga lunges for the kill, but Naralina throws herself in front of her sister. She takes the hit to save Naminisha, begging her to leave while she still can. Novilio tries to drag himself back into the fight, telling the girls he'll handle the rest. Denroga mocks the noisy royal family, telling them their status will be taken away in no time. He claims he's the real successor of the king, and starting tomorrow, the entire country will belong to him. He's already planning his coronation in his head. Novilio stands tall, telling the villain that even if he kills them all, no one will ever listen to his orders. The soldiers start shouting their support for the prince, refusing to ever serve a traitor like Denroga. It's a moment of pure defiance that makes the mastermind even angrier. The knights rally around Novilio, declaring they are his soldiers and his alone. Denroga just laughs at their loyalty, telling them to bark as much as they want while they still have heads. He doesn't care about loyalty, he only cares about power. He points out that even if they defeat his red-armored soldiers, the monsters won't stop. They're all just food for the whore now. Denroga is convinced he's won, but he's forgotten one very important, very angry person. Wazoo is still on the ground, but the fire in his eyes is back. He's never going to forgive Denroga for hurting his friends. He starts pulling himself back up, ignoring the blood and the pain that's still tearing through his chest. Frujair is surprised to see Wazoo standing, but he just grins and says he won't show any more mercy. He's going to increase his power to see just how much Wazoo's body can bear. Wazoo is barely hanging on, but he's not done yet. He's going to find a way to hit this guy if it's the last thing he does. Wazoo is reeling under the weight of Frujair Razor's massive presence. He's trying to figure out a way to win, but he can barely keep himself from being crushed. Even if I can withstand it, how do I defeat him? Frujair lands another devastating blow, and Wazoo can feel his internals being torn apart. His auto-healing is working overtime, but it's struggling to keep up with the sheer power of the S-Rank's magic-infused strikes. On the verge of collapse, Wazoo's mind flashes back to the mountains. He remembers the desperation of being starving and the sheer will it took to eat anything and everything just to survive another day. Mir is hovering over him, crying out in worry. Wazoo looks at her and has a sudden epiphany. If he could survive the mountains by consuming the impossible, maybe he can do the same here. He gives the little dragon a weak smile, thanking her for the spark of an idea. Wazoo drags himself back to his feet, looking strangely energized. He gives a confident thumbs up to a relieved Mir, telling her he's figured out a plan. He turns back to Frujair with a grin, challenging him to bring everything he's got. Frujair is taken aback by Wazoo's sudden recovery, but quickly regains his composure. Wazoo declares that he's done holding back, and the two prepare for another collision of raw power. Frujair unleashes a massive shockwave of magic with his next punch, certain that this will finally put Wazoo down. He laughs at the destruction, thinking he's finally broken his opponent's spirit. But as the dust settles, Wazoo is still standing. He's coughing and bloodied, but his eyes are full of defiance. He taunts Frujair, asking if that was really all the legendary destroyer had to offer. Frujair stands tall, looking down at Wazoo, who has fallen again. He's convinced that Wazoo's stubbornness is just a death wish. Meanwhile, Wazoo is whispering to himself, focusing every ounce of his being on the waves of magic power hitting him. Another brutal strike from Frujair sends Wazoo reeling. He's pushing his body to the absolute limit, begging it to stay together for just a little bit longer while he tries to master this new technique. Wazoo is sent flying through the air by the force of the impact, his body tumbling like a rag doll across the barren ground. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Novilio is locked in a desperate struggle against the transformed Denroga. The prince is gasping for air, but he refuses to let his guard down while his people are still in danger. Novilio shouts a battle cry, forcing himself to move despite the exhaustion. He knows that everyone is putting their lives on the line, and he can't afford to be the one who falters. He puts his trust in Wazoo, hoping the young man can keep the S-rank powerhouse Frujair occupied. Wazoo has become the unlikely beacon of hope for the entire kingdom's survival. Wazoo's thoughts return to his time in the snowy mountains and the pain of losing Arya. He remembers the feeling of having nothing but the untapped power hidden deep within himself. He visualizes the magic power from Frujair's attacks flowing into him like water. He realizes that these waves of energy are just another form of food that he can choose to digest rather than endure. The realization clicks. If he can eat the magic power before the physical impact causes internal damage, he can turn Frujair's greatest weapon into his own fuel. It's exactly like the strange, dangerous things he ate in the mountains. As Frujair delivers another punch, Wazoo opens himself up to the magic. He lets the energy flood his system, shouting internally for his body to consume every last drop of it. A brilliant light erupts from the point of impact. Instead of being blown away, Wazoo stands his ground and lets out a hearty laugh. He thanks a bewildered Frujair for the meal, looking more alive than ever. Frujair is completely stunned to see Wazoo standing there perfectly healthy, as if the last several minutes of punishment never happened. Wazoo chuckles, explaining that eating bad food in the mountains was the best training he could have ever asked for. From a distant cliffside, the mysterious hooded Shiro watches the fight with a wicked grin. He's impressed by Wazoo's growth, noting that things have finally started to get interesting. Wazoo repeats his claim, much to Frujair's outrage. The warrior can't stand the idea of his refined magic power being treated like a simple snack. Wazoo admits it was a desperate gamble, but one that's clearly paid off. Wazoo asserts his humanity, refusing to be called anything else. He catches Frujair's next punch with a single hand, the impact barely even making him flinch. He focuses on the magic waves again, drawing them in and eating them before they can spread. Frujair is visibly shaken, realizing that his most reliable technique is now completely useless. Wazoo retaliates with a punch of his own, sending Frujair staggering back. He apologizes for hitting so hard, but admits he was getting a bit annoyed after being used as a punching bag for so long. Frujair starts laughing like a maniac, truly enjoying the thrill of a fight where everything is on the line. He welcomes the challenge, even as Wazoo notices the S rank has sustained some serious injuries of his own. Wazoo charges forward, determined to end the fight. He feels a new surge of strength coursing through him, unsure if it's from mere support or the protection of the goddesses he met before. He winds up for a massive finishing strike, declaring himself the strongest with a roar that echoes across the plains. His fist connects with Frujair's chest with the force of a falling star. The impact sends the massive Frujair razor tumbling backward through the dirt, finally ending his relentless assault. Frujair is barely able to stay awake, calling Wazoo a monster for enduring so much damage. Wazoo rejects the label, insisting that he has no intention of being anything other than a human being. To Wazoo's surprise, the legendary S-rank warrior just falls fast asleep right there on the ground. He realizes that Frujair must have been completely exhausted by their exchange. Wazoo knows he can't rest yet. He looks out over the battlefield, seeing the endless waves of monsters and red-armored soldiers still causing chaos. He needs to get even stronger to protect those who are still fighting. Wazoo takes charge, shouting for the kingdom's knights to focus on rescuing the wounded. He promises to handle the monster horde himself, and the soldiers are more than happy to leave it to him. With Mir clinging to his shoulder, Wazoo charges into the fray. He's determined to clear out every single monster and traitor soldier, so that Navilio can focus on his duel with Denroga. Wazoo leaps into the air, intercepting a giant bird monster that was hovering over the battlefield. He shouts for it to get out of his way, dealing a blow that sends it crashing down. He continues his rampage, warning the monsters to head back to the mountains if they don't want to be crushed. Mir cheers him on with every monster he sends flying. Near the front lines, the red-armored soldiers continue to mock the kingdom's forces, calling them weak and insignificant. They're convinced that victory is already theirs. Wazoo suddenly appears, checking in on Orlando and Cassie. They're glad to see him, but tell him to focus on the monsters. They can handle these human traitors just fine on their own. Back at the main confrontation, Navilio is struggling against the overwhelming power of the transformed Denroga. The villain mocks him, saying a wise general is useless if they don't have the strength to back it up. Dinroga prepares to deliver a final, lethal blow to the prince. Naralina and Naminisha watch from behind their barrier, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. Naralina suddenly leaps into action, parrying Dinroga's massive strike with a fierce grin. She tells him that if her brother is a wise general, then she'll be the brave general who refuses to be beaten. She stands tall, revealing that she's finally seen through Dinroga's predictable attack patterns. She taunts him as he tries to take to the sky, telling him his wings are just going to get in her way. Naralina stands firm as Dinroga launches one last desperate assault. She easily parries his claws, her expression cold and resolute. "Indeed," she cries, showing him that his reign of terror is over. Dinroga is stunned as Naralina delivers a crushing blow. "Sorry, but we, the Mambon family, have won this war," she declares. The villain is left with no choice but to face his end as the battle around them finally subsides. Navilio and Naralina stand side by side, their voices joining in a triumphant shout that echoes across the battlefield. "We'll protect the Manbond Kingdom," they vow, their combined strength finally breaking the enemy's spirit. Dinroga lets out a final, soul-rending scream, "Guayr," as his physical form begins to crumble under the weight of his defeat. He dissolves into a cloud of dark energy, leaving nothing behind but the silence of the aftermath. Wazoo takes a deep breath, looking out over the now-quiet plains. "Well, that's all of them," he mutters, feeling the weight of the battle lift from his shoulders. Naralina and Naminisha look on with relief, while Mir chirps happily on his shoulder. Wazoo pulls out his guild card to check for any changes. He's shocked to see his status has skyrocketed, with new unique skills like Real Gluttonous and an Earth Goddess Protection that makes him nearly impervious to internal damage. Inside his mind, the goddesses who granted him these powers are already arguing about him. The mental bickering of the goddesses continues, with each one claiming Wazoo for their own or demanding more from him. Wazoo can only hold his head in frustration, wishing for a moment of peace as his human race percentage continues to drop. Peace is short-lived, however, as a mysterious figure suddenly appears before him. Wazoo tenses, recognizing the hooded man from before. "Nice to meet you. Still remember me?" the figure asks. Wazoo narrows his eyes, whispering the name, "Shiro." In the background, the kingdom's forces begin to gather their wounded, the horror of the war finally behind them. Naminisha looks toward Wazoo, her heart full of gratitude for the mysterious young man who saved her country. Shiro gives a nonchalant wave, his eyes hidden beneath his deep hood. "You remember me, Wazoo. I've been watching you fight from afar." He mocks the Demon King's defeat and praises Wazoo's unexpected strength, making the young hero even more suspicious. Wazoo confronts Shiro about the red balls that caused so much destruction. He realizes Shiro is the one who has been going around selling them to transform people into monsters. Shiro just grins, enjoying the tension. Shiro doesn't bother denying it. He is the main culprit behind the recent tragedies. He tells Wazoo that if he truly wants to understand the meaning behind it all, he should follow him. Wazoo is hesitant, sensing a deeper, more dangerous plot at play. Shiro reveals that his true interest lies in Wazoo's power. He muses aloud about who would win in a fight, Wazoo or a mysterious sloth girl he's been observing. Wazoo is confused by the sudden challenge. Shiro mentions that Wazoo has already bested envy and lust, referring to the previous enemies. He insists he wants to see Wazoo and the sloth girl clash. Wazoo tries to decline, but Shiro has already decided on a way to force his hand. Without a word of warning, Shiro unleashes a torrent of dark energy, creating a portal that snaps up the unsuspecting Mir. "Mir!" Wazoo screams in horror as his tiny companion is dragged into the void. Shiro holds the crystal containing the captured dragon, a cold smile on his face. He tells Wazoo that if he wants Mir back, he must travel to the spa town in the north. He mocks their friendship before vanishing into the shadows. "Bye-bye." Shiro's voice echoes as he disappears completely, leaving Wazoo alone and trembling with fury. Wazoo is left standing in the wake of the sudden kidnapping, his resolve hardening. Novilio and the princesses rush to Wazoo's side, sensing something is wrong. Wazoo quickly explains the situation. He has no time to celebrate their victory. He has to leave for the north immediately to save Mir. The royal family and their allies gather to see Wazoo off. Naminisha and Naralina thank him from the bottom of their hearts for saving their home. Orlando stands with them, his respect for Wazoo now absolute. Cassie approaches Wazoo and hands him a special badge. She explains that it will allow him to rank up at any guild on the continent without question. Thanks for saving Man Bond, she says, her gratitude clear in her eyes. Wazoo gives the final, determined wave before setting off on his new quest. Naminisha watches him go, her eyes welling with tears as she whispers a final goodbye. See you later, she says, her voice full of unspoken emotion. As Wazoo's silhouette fades into the horizon, Naminisha's mind drifts back to the day they first met. She remembers the moment he rescued her, and how she was instantly captivated by his simple, clumsy, yet incredibly kind nature. Naminisha reflects on her growth as a princess and a woman. She declares that her reward for him, saving her kingdom, will be herself. She has already decided that she wants to be Wazoo's wife, regardless of any arranged marriages. Standing on the balcony, Naminisha looks out toward the northern mountains where Wazoo is heading. Wait for me, Wazoo-sama. She vows in her heart, the answer to her feelings finally crystal clear as the sun sets on the liberated kingdom.